In a world that walks the line, there's a rare few who think outside the box together for the crew. To break the equations, not bound to any rule. Exposing to the world the universe's own view. It takes the talent of the craftsman, it takes the mind of the fool, to make the vision realize energy and matter in a duel. To a break, to a duel.
Us of today's world, we all look to achieve true enlightenment. But how do we get there? It starts with a belief in something or someone greater than yourself. A belief in the greater good, not for personal benefit, but for the benefit of all mankind. We all struggle with how to get there. Do we let prayer guide us? Do we meditate to find our true inner voice? Do we use crystals to channel feelings of joy and empathy? We all start our path in many ways, but we all want to ascend when God calls us. Today we discuss the journey to enlightenment. May we all be blessed with a light body and spiritual enlightenment.
Hello everyone, my name is Nathan, otherwise known as Old Man Bills, and we have Joe here today, and we are once again talking about the light body.
All right, light body part 2. Let's go.
All right, Joe, lead us off. Tell us what you got going on.
Yeah, so I mean, on last week, we spent a good amount of time with Gerald and Nathan discussing some of the different ways to activate your light body and what that really means. And, some different ways of being able to attain light body activation. And I thought that a good spin off of that, since there seemed to be a lot of people wanting to see a part 2 of that, going more into the, okay, so your light body is activated, now what? And there's a lot of different stuff and powers that could be, found within, greater truths found within and such that could really help you benefit your life, but also some kind of unusual sort of talents that could be found and achieved and harnessed, through activation of your light body and spirit. Yeah. So I figured that we'd focus a little bit on that today.
On the not the activation part, but on the
what you can do, with your light body, within your physical reality. Yeah.
So achieving your light body before you ascend, basically.
Yeah, and there's ways that when you achieve your light body, and are in tune with yourself and your spirit, that you're able to do with further practice. It's powers that we all innately have just as human beings. Sometimes even when you don't have heightened spiritual awarenesses and light body activation to the fullest degrees, we all still experience in our regular daily lives some of these effects, and sometimes may not even realize that's what it is. And a lot of it has to do with what we were talking about last week, mind and heart coherency, and just balancing. When you're balanced out, you're able to really sense more of the subtle energies around you. And that's also the gateway that allows you to tap into not only the higher self, but also with practice and technique, be able to do some incredible and very, very fringe things that I would say up until recently would have been considered highly occulted, as well as, it probably would have been met with more skepticism than we could actually discuss today. I think that people have more of an open mind today, which is
right. I 100% agree that people have more of an open mind today versus what they did before. Let me just clarify real quick. So when we say light body, we're achieving something that is close to, but is not quite your form of a soul when you ascend and you go up into heaven. So we're doing it in the earthly realm, in your body itself. So it's like a deep spiritual meditation that you go into, something that's different for every individual, but it achieves the same goal. It's an understanding of your surroundings around you and how they change based on your mindset and how you actually perceive the world, because the world has a lens. It's almost like a mirror in the fact that it'll change how it works around the way that you perceive it and how you interact with it.
Yeah, so I want to build on something that you said that I thought was really a good point and interesting right off the bat. Yeah, and of course, this is just an opinion, and other people may view this circumstance differently, and it's totally okay if you do. But the best way that I could explain and understand this myself is, there's many different levels of yourself, and many more levels than people typically realize. But yet we use some of the like verbiage and stuff in our regular daily language. You had mentioned the spirit and the soul, and there is a differentiation between the spirit and the soul. When we're talking about light body activation, really you're talking about the spirit of yourself. Now, the best way I could go to explain a spirit is as the gatekeeper, the bounding force that connects the physical body and the physical reality with the higher self and the soul. So, it's through the spirit that the soul is accessed, more or less, and so are the higher realms. But you have to have that spirit in the right place and activated in order to be able to transcend to any higher sort of point. And so there is a differentiation. I think that some people tend to use them interchangeably, spirit, soul, but I think that that's an important distinction to make, here for purposes of understanding what it means to activate your light body, and to be able to ascend to a higher consciousness and access all those points. Because ultimately our spirit is an agent of both us and our soul, if that makes sense.
No, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, I always look at it like, your soul is what ascends, but it has to have a spiritual component to it. Without it, it's your individuality that makes your spirit.
Without a doubt.
Yeah. So, when we say meditation, most people attribute it to, just a higher level of thought. And I would say that it goes more into releasing of emotions that were there before. It's understanding the world in a different way completely. You see, we always say, oh, everything's so bad around me and I don't know how to fix it. Well, you do. You understand how to fix it. You just have to tap into it. So if you stop and meditate and take in all the good things around you, and then you present the good things around you in your aura around you, the world will reciprocate in giving those things back to you.
Yeah, that's definitely the law of attraction. And, I think that's fundamentally true and correct for the most part. The one thing that kind of throws a wrench in the tire sometimes that people don't really understand is that we're all here for a specific purpose. Usually it's to have some kind of realization and experience in life, and then everything else around it is sort of built around that premise. So there becomes like you have free will in navigating this whole situation, but at the same time you're going to realize that you're going to have a lot of synchronicities and things coming up time and time again in your life that may act as trial or tribulation to your free will, within that same process. So it's just a whole interesting thing to consider. But I think it was the question had said, what did he say? People die when they lose their spirit to live. And that's a little oddly worded, but I mean, kind of what I'm getting out of that and what I would put out there about that is there's a certain amount of death and resurrection that has to happen in physical life in yourself in order to really attain these higher states. Unless if you're just in, have no sort of imbalances whatsoever and you're perfectly balanced, then I suppose that could be foregone. But I mean, I am not fortunate enough to know people in my life, no matter how well they look like they're doing or whatever have you, that would be able to forego a death and resurrection process in their own life in order to be balanced enough to fully realize any sort of higher self. So the spirit does. So for the spirit to be released, you actually do need to die, but you die in more of it's an ego death. It's it's not necessarily metaphorical. It's an ego death that has to happen really in order for you to get to the bottom of the barrel.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. It wasn't such a physical thing as it was a like how you feel, your mental state, everything. You have to completely change that. It's like a stop and a restart. Is that kind of what you mean?
Well, I mean, it's just a profound realization and reconciliation of all of the trauma that we harbor, really, and we all have it. So, and again, maybe that still sounds metaphorical, but I'll be honest in saying most people do not get to the point where things are good and okay enough and then have this process happen for them, or they induce this process for themselves of really getting to the bottom of the things that are still there for them. Usually it's only in circumstances where somebody is foregoing very, very difficult situations, that this process almost happens naturally. Now, here's what's insane about it is it sounds metaphorical, but it's so deep, profound, and it's such a period of turmoil oftentimes and hardship going through it that some people don't actually make it out alive, like physically. Like people have heart attacks, people drop dead, people, kill themselves because it's too much. Accepting it all is too much. Accepting it and letting it go is an impossibility. Like they can't handle it. So they go into all these biological stress responders and they could actually end up sick or dead. So is it metaphorical? You tell me.
Well, if you found out the answer was as quick as snapping your fingers, then it would be so much better if everybody just knew that. It comes to a certain point. It's the holding that is holding you back. Once you release that, then you change completely. It's that fast. As soon as you stop holding on to everything, then you change. And that's the way it works.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, in its most simple form. But, it's once you get to a point where you realize all of this, for lack of a better way to put it, and it's really awful, stuff. Once you realize all of this stuff, because I guess the stuff is different for everybody. That's why I'm putting it that way. And you start seeing reality for what it really is. And you realize that you are a very powerful entity. You really are. Like everybody is. We all have it in us. You have to find it. And it doesn't go without the process that we just discussed. So once you kind of go through that, you realize that there is energy running through you, running through your nervous system, running through your body, making, like this power is tangible. And how you direct it, what you do with it, how you're able to manipulate it in ways to better your physical reality and your higher self as well, because that's where the intent comes in. It's like your intro said, right? Like you have to have like the good intent. You have to do it for good and good cause. That's really where it comes in. The ways that you benefit yourself in physical reality really have to play to the role of the greater good cause of your own soul and soul contract and reason that you're here, so to speak. And I say soul contract loosely. It's a little bit of a catch term. I don't necessarily love it, but it's just another way of saying the reason that you're here, what you're here to find. So, and there's different ways of exploring that are really tangible, things that we could hold on to, things that science is slowly but surely getting on board with, actually saying, you know what, yeah, this might actually be the case. There might actually be something to this stuff that mystic sages, prophets, people of faith, and have all known for millennia.
Yeah. Well, I kind of see some of it as like you deal with all the world's pressures, all their thoughts, all their wanting you to be something else. Every person wanted you to be just like them. Your dad wants you to be like him. The world wants you to see things in a different way. And you take all of this in, and it creates a tremendous pressure upon yourself. And regardless if you see it that way or not, your body's feeling it. And it's compressing upon you. The whole point of the meditation is to find your inner voice, to be able to shut all of that out and say, stop. At this point going forward, I have one clear voice in my head, and I'm going to follow it. And that's it. It's pushing everything that they try to press upon you out and finding your voice, finding who you are, what makes you really happy, what things beyond the pressures of this world are enlightening to you. That's what it means. You got to find your own voice in all of this. And that's what the meditation does for me. I don't do it in sitting form like some other people do and concentrate. I like to walk. And as I walk, my mind completely wanders. I'm surprised I stay on the path because I can't see it half the time because I'm in my head. And I'm really just clearing out all the negative and just focusing on what it is that I need to do, where I'm at, how happy I am. You know what I mean? All those great thoughts. And then it projects when I talk to the next person I see, because generally it's the happiest feeling in the world. I impress upon them my joy of understanding in this way.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's definitely a good way to go about reaching a zero within yourself. We always talk about 0 point when we talk about energy and being able to extract extra energy and have all of these anomalous effects and things of that nature. At the same time, that same exact 0 point exists within all of us. It's just simply a matter of being able to pull the frequency down to nearer at zero. And once you're able to be at that state of still calmness, profound things happen, and two very interesting things happen, and both of them are they're not analogous to what the physics behind how the anomalies in all the coils work and stuff. They're directly related and exactly the same as. It's not an analog, it's the same. It's the same mechanism, it's the same principles. When you reach this level of zero within yourself, and you've had an enlightened state, all of a sudden there's almost the silence allows for an innate perceived amplification of very, very subtle things. So any little disturbance of that line, which would usually be covered up by noise and other frequency, is able to be heard loud and clear. It's able to be felt and fully interpreted and known for exactly what it is, because it's a blip on a flat line, and that's the best way to, really think about that process, and that leads to you being able to be more connected and aware of your environment, your surroundings, your relationships, your connection, and everything else around you, which is really profound and leads to That's probably for step one for somebody going through this that is able to achieve these higher states and then also achieve that stillness, is they'll find that they have a better intuition than they ever had before. They're able to really read the situation appropriately and feel within them what the correct action is or the correct response is in their actual world. Then what comes along after that sort of melds itself, and this is all lower stage stuff, but what melds after that is like a certain degree of clairvoyance that you might attain at first, where because you're so sensitive, because you're getting the raw good data, because you're feeling it and you're taking it for exactly what it is in reality, then you're able to postulate what it looks like ahead. And that gives like a certain degree of clairvoyance that is attainable at like an early stage of this. And all of this stuff could be developed beyond just reading subtle energies. Because what do we know from what we experiment with on the theory side of things, right? Is that once you hit a 0 point, once you hit scalar, once you hit that, we're no longer dealing on the physical reality side of Planck's distance. It's blinking in and out of Planck's distance. So when it blinks out of Planck's distance, this is when you have time dilation effects, in those sorts of things. This is when you have, amplification of energy coming out because there's no time. So you're able to take as much, it's not subject to the frequency. You're able to take that. Once you're able to do that in yourself and you click out of Planck's distance, all of a sudden, the world kind of collapses in onto itself. Like time and place all become kind of just one on top of the other, and you become right a part of that. It's like the fabric. It's like if it was a towel. This is the best way I could describe it for somebody that's never kind of experienced any of these things. Sort of like if you have a blanket and it's laid out, well, that's it, normal. But now imagine you laid down on the blanket, became part of the blanket, and then the blanket just folded up. But now if you wanted to be on that top left corner of the blanket, well, you're part of the blanket, so of course you're at the top left corner. All you got to do is go there. That's sort of what it's like, for lack of there's really no metaphorical way to put something so extreme,
Well, let me just explain this in working with the cold energy, and people should understand this. You project a frequency in your body. There's no question about it. You can get hooked up to an EGR and see that. Now, when you get to the state of 0 point in your mind, you can now change frequencies at will. And you can bring them up, you can bring them down. Now, with dealing with this one wire energy, when you put your hands in the water, you cannot have the wrong frequency in your head. Let me just explain why. You have to become oscillating with that frequency itself. You have to attain some point of resonance with it. And it doesn't have to be perfect resonance. It just has to be sympathetic resonance. But you must attain that in order to achieve what you need to out of it. If your mind is not clear and you do not have that, you will immediately change that energy to hot energy, and it will be completely destructive to you. So it's that clarity of mind that allows this energy to work. And it has to do with your creating, how do I say this, structured water. So as you create structured water, understand this, your water in your body still has frequency in it. Your water that you put your hands into has frequency in it. If you ever wondered why you would baptize somebody in water, it's because it's a transference of energy. This is what this stuff works on. So if you want to go to the technical aspect of it, that's it. You have to be mentally in the right place to do this. And I do it live and I do things like that. Let me reassure you, my mind is very clear. I'm always in a happy mood. If I'm not touching that water. You couldn't pay me to touch the water ever. And I've felt it the wrong way and I know the difference. And it just makes you sick. It'll literally make you sick. So your mind has to be right when you're dealing with the technology that you're dealing with, because it restructures water. That's why. And whether you do it right or not, you're going to have to understand it. And if you don't play with it. Just don't play with it. So I like to think of it as a very simple thing. The only way to achieve the higher knowledge in all of this is to really set your mind right, because you're going to get like the Akashic record coming through your brain as soon as you open yourself up to it. The problem with most people is they can't open themselves up to it. So you'll have a trouble understanding the flow of energy, and you'll look at it as just circuits, and you won't know why. When you achieve everything in your mind, it'll flow. It's like a waterfall. It's just peaceful in your mind. It'll flow one thing to the next. And the product that you put out is 100 times better than everyone else. You're pushing the limits that they can't push because they just don't see it. They can't see the flow of energy. So they're stuck in the mundane task of this is positive, this is negative, and this is the way I got to move this to this, but I don't understand the energy flow. It's one of the biggest differences in the world. When you attain that in your head, you'll start to see why Tesla himself would see things ahead of time. He could build them in his mind. He can see them clear as day because he understood the flow, not the necessary the parts, but the flow. So,
yeah, one good way to test yourself to a degree to see where you're at is, if you look at like a national weather map with no, like the radar, and you look at it for like a week's point of time, if you look at it and you could kind of understand those interactions and then be able to predict without any knowledge of meteorology, be able to sort of understand those flows and all those interactions, and then be able to predict where a storm might head, for instance, or how high and low pressure systems would interact with each other and what they probably will do as that time goes on through looking at the progression of the week, so to speak, on that map. If you're able to get your head around those things and then fully understand it, be able to like predict sort of what's next, like you're already at a degree of understanding the energy flow states and things of that nature. And it's a good gauge to sort of know where you're at. And then you have, when you look at yourself from like the light body situation of it, if you actually were to tune yourself up and undergo these processes and then take that knowledge that you had, all of a sudden things start to make like profound sense. You'll be able to predict weather better than a meteorologist just by looking at, like rather than look at a week, you look at 2 hours and then you could immediately see how this is going to play out. It's just wild. These are the types of weird and intuitive knowledges that you get from reaching these higher states and then tuning into like these things that you might already be somewhat sensitive to.
So let me add to that. We're dealing with pure scalar energy. What does that mean? It means temperature and frequency. That's what it is. So when you get to scalar, they say they build upon each other, but they don't. If they're the same frequency, the same temperature, they don't build on each other. So how do you build them? You have to build the frequency with the temperature and then change that frequency with the change in temperature and then do it again and again. Now, every time you do it, now you're building a field. One field times the second field times the third field times the fourth field. It is 100% time dilation as you do it. That's why they're working in that way. You must build your temperatures and your fields and your frequencies all on the same level, and then do it again on a different frequency and temperature. You see, if you can control the temperature in your system, you control all of it. Because as I've told you before, when you bring up the frequency, you bring down the amps. So you bring up the cold, you bring down the heat. So now as you put this through your wired system, you're starting to see the correlation. As I change the frequency, I'm changing the amount of heat that goes into the system. Therefore, I'm changing my level of scalar. That's how you're working this system. That's why it's 0 point energy. It's not any other way. So when we say it has to do with your body and light body, and how do you translate all that together, you're part of the system as you're in that room.
So can I touch on that a little, because how that's a part of the light body?
Go for it.
I mean, we talked briefly about last week, auras and things of that nature, you know, just the general emission of this light energy that we all have coming from us that fluctuates just like anything else. And you know, that's the overall whole of the system, is the idea of an aura. Okay, but through very specific practices, you're able to channel that diffuse energy that's running through you at any given time, and you could channel the energy. And like there's certain practices like Tai Chi, for instance, is directly about, you know, ethereal flow of energy in and out of yourself, but then also within yourself to be able to, the same as, like I said, it's not an analog, it is the same, to be able to saturate and compress and direct that energy. So, you know, you could get to the point where, like, you know, if you're talking about an aura, you'd have that light glow all around you. But if you're focusing at the palms of your hands, for instance, which are huge intakes and disperse, you know, like outs of this energy, you could literally hold enough energy in your hands to burn your own hands.
Mm-hmm.
Which is like, and I've done that many times, like, you know, like the center of your palm where it's all emanating from will be cold and white, and then all around it will be red and red hot and burning like you just touched a stove. So this is all about channeling that energy, and it's literally the same exact thing. It's about building the field, reaching saturation, having the correct flow to be able to channel the energy, having a precipitation of the energy, and then compressing it. And it's crazy, and it's equal.
Yeah. One of the things Gerald always talked about when he does this is don't use the wrong wraps. Do not put them in the wrong way, because it ultimately may achieve a plasmoid in the end. It's hot energy, so it's destructive to the human body, and that's what makes you sick. Once you flip it and you're right on the edge of it all the time in cold energy, you're on the edge of it. So if I go over to my energy source and I add too much to the load of it, I go into hot energy. Even though it came out cold, I now push back on it far enough to put it back into hot energy. But if I leave it and I am able to channel it before it gets there, so I put it in a rodent coil and channel it before it gets to the load, I now put myself in the position where it stays in cold energy. So think about your body in that way. Your body has a heat source and it has a cooling source. And at all times, you're trying to fight the balance between the two. And
yeah, and if you want to differentiate human beings from other animals, we're one of the few that have active, you know, temperature regulation, which should speak volumes as to, you know, consciousness and sentience, as far as this hot cold system and our metabolism is concerned. Because even most warm-blooded animals that have to maintain, their own body heat, they do so through other means other than perspiration. It's perspiration that is a major differentiating factor of humans amongst other animals.
Structure of water is so important.
Science has said, does it flow from your head to your ass or your ass to your head? Well, I mean, I guess that's what team you're swinging for, but you know, but at the end of the day, I mean, I can't speak for everybody. I can only really speak for myself. If I'm taking in energy, it's always in through the head, and for me, it's more out through the bottoms of your feet than your ass. So it goes full human, you know. I mean, if you were a double amputee, I can't tell you exactly where it would come out. You know, you kind of lost a couple of antennas at that point. But guess what? I'm an intact person, so that's what it does for me.
Well, let me tell you a little bit of science. If you were looking at the ether and they describe it as a funnel on the top and the bottom, and you show the image that shows up inside of that, well, the actual toroids would show up as a butterfly. Where is the one shape in our human body that always comes out as a butterfly? It's your pelvis.
I can think of a couple. Yeah.
No, it's your pelvis.
That's fair.
And they always address everything in this as male and female when they talk about the structures of the triangle. So think about it that way. If you wish, you can do it any other way you want, I guess, but that's the way I think about it.
Yeah, no, that's not a bad way to think about it at all. And I mean, for intents and purposes, you know, your main chakras all run that same exact path to your pelvis. That has to do all with Kundalini and all that stuff too. It doesn't really have to do with your extremities. It's more your core. But as we know from different, Eastern, I'll have to tread lightly as usual. Eastern traditional medicine, so to speak, there's all different activation points because the circuit does go down that low. So the soles of your feet have actually pressure points that, interact with your nervous system in ways that could affect other parts of your body. And oftentimes, these practitioners of traditional medicine could just simply feel around for different points of inflammation or pulsation through palpitation and be able to tell where your imbalances are and, be able to work on those areas to try and, stimulate, well-being in those areas.
So let's go into the science a little bit here. Okay. If I told you that we wanted to make a hexagon, right? And then I told you the shape of quartz is a hexagon, but then shape of DNA is also a hexagon. But I also told you negative water in H3H2 is a hexagon. Yet when I show you flow in structured water, it presents as a artery in your body. Is the exact representation that it makes. The shape and frequency of that shape is intertwined between all of them. So as you build that shape into any coil, you're going to build that shape to resonate with everything that is the same with that. That's why it works the way it does in cold energy. It does not work the same in hot energy.
Now, there is one thing that I wanted to throw out there about hot and cold energy in the body, too. We obviously have hot energy running through us that is part of our physical processes. This is why, if you have some kind of nerve damage, they could run a test like an EMG test or something like that and be able to get readings of the nerve.
Hold on. when you say hot energy, let me just specify here, because this may be a breaking in your mind. We have a certain value that we're able to go up to, and then we can't go any further.
Correct. These are all small numbers. These these are all small numbers, but they're still it's still pulse hot energy that is the mechanism of how our nervous system functions on a regular level. So when you say to yourself, "Move my hand," there's brain signals that fire and then translate into a nervous system response. That's a hot energy response.
So let me clarify. Okay.
Sure.
The difference between the cold energy and hot energy is very little. Mm-hmm. So you have very little on the cold side that you can go in your body, and on the hot side you can go on your body. So that area is very little. So if we say 20 degrees on each side, okay, which may be a little out of bounds, but we'll just say it for argument's sake, then that's it. So you're still in balance with each other. So when I say hot, I mean beyond the point, like you're beyond the fever point. You know what I mean? To where your body's at excess. Or you're beyond
that's the whole entire situation around like inflammation and things like that. Like anytime you have an area, it's red, it's swollen and hot to the touch. That's what you're dealing with. No,
I understand. I guess I wanted to try to make a distinction in there. There's a zone where you can play up and down, but then there's out of bounds as soon as you go beyond that on either side. You're into destruction.
Absolutely. So I think that the point that I was trying to draw out was a little twofold, as everything I say always is. One is that, well, obviously science is still catching up with the idea of cold energy in the first place, and it's not something they're necessarily looking for. And therefore, the full understanding of our own functions is all based on the hot energy side, the same as everything else, which is why they run tests like EMGs and so on to be able to determine nerve function and degree of any sort of dysfunction going on based on a normal baseline signal that they would expect from the hot energy side of things. By the same token, there's always a sympathetic, any impulse that's hot energy impulse that might cause action or reaction in the body is also going to have a cold energy aspect of it. When you're building up chi energy in yourself and you're doing, like, for instance, making like a ball of energy in your hands just to be able to practice the channeling, let's say, for instance, that's actually cold energy. But the whole thing is that it's not like anything else. Like the hot energy has to be somewhere too. Well, where's the hot energy? Well, it's like I said, when you look at the palm of your hand and the center of your hand is white, but the whole entire ring around it is red, it's because there's hot energy along with it. It's two sides to a coin, even in that circumstance as well.
I agree. So let me answer this like in the comments, okay? Hot and colder energy sounds like flat earth stuff. Here's what people don't get, and I'm trying to get a point across when I say hot or cold. You have to play with hot and cold in your system. If you don't think of it that way and you only think of fields, you've already failed. Mm-hmm. You have 100% failed. It is the temperature differential that creates the time dilation. Mm-hmm. So if you do not have temperature in it, you fail. So when I say I could take my rodent coil and give it energy, and in the center it's getting colder, outside gets warmer or stays at room temperature. When I say cold in that system, I'm saying room temperature and below to 20 degrees, and that's it. Not saying any more.
Nathan, you saw what Jarvis said?
No, I didn't. Hold on. I'll just finish out my thing first.
Finish out the thought. See what Jarvis said.
Okay. And then When you get the hot energy, I'm going 20 degrees above, and that's it. I'm simply staying within a simple framework in order to make this energy work to produce what I'm looking for. So if you're in the thought of, hey, positive, negative, which one is it? You're still wrong. You're still wrong.
Dead on, man.
You have to have the heat and the cold. And it's not, you're playing with the temperature of the room by controlling the system. If you do not do it by building the system, you fail. You cannot add cold to the room and change the system, because then you're changing the room. Now you have to change the system again to get back to changing the system. Okay? Because you failed. You already took down the temperature of the room.
Which, by the way, that's exactly how they've been trying to achieve superconductivity, is by manipulating the environment and then building a system that works with the super chilled environment. It's like, oh.
But that's why they can't find a room temperature superconductor, because they're not understanding. You have to have the temperature inside the structure to change it in order to get superconductivity. You see, the point is, the lower the temperature in the center versus the outside being room temperature is superconductivity. It is the level to increase superconductivity in that coil system. That's just a flat out fact. That's how it works. That's how it's built. Okay. That's what you must achieve to do this. So I just have to address that. It sounds wrong, but because you're not looking at it in the right way, you're not understanding what I'm trying to tell you. I'm trying to tell you, temperature is essential for creating the system the correct way. And if you do not play with temperature in the system, you failed, because you'll have anomalies you cannot put out there for. Your frequency will go haywire. Okay. Your heat will go haywire because you're not understanding how to control it. So, okay. What am I looking at?
Same thing happens in your body, by the way, as what he's saying. Like, these are the destructive signals that people get like caught up in when they have, like, you know, crises that they, you know, are going through. But what Jarvis said, he hit the nail on the head. That was exactly what we talked about at another point. You know, this thing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So anyway, let's get back to the light body. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cause a ruckus or anything. I'm just, it's because people don't look at everything that I look at, that they probably don't see it. And it simply has to do with, I'm doing all the experiments to prove something out. And every time I don't account for those things, I fail. And I don't just fail a little bit, I fail miserably. And I'm trying to show something to you, and it doesn't matter if I'm lighting up a burrito. I mean, it sounds like the stupidest thing on earth, right? But I'm controlling the temperature of that burrito, whether you know it or not. I'm staying in between the hot and cold side of that energy, because as soon as you plug in that burrito, guess what happens? The amount of RF doubles. So you now have to control the temperature. So you put it into different things. Anyway, it's a difference between seeing it in person, I guess, and just thinking about it. Anyway, let's get back to the light body, Joe.
Yeah, I'm gonna take this, and we're gonna go woo with it.
All right?
Woo. We'll go woo with it, and I say it's woo, but it's really not, in my opinion. But listen, everybody take it with a grain of salt, and you know, whatever I say. Also, just know that I'm totally like aware of my physical presence and reality. Like, I'm not lost in some kind of sea of nonsense or whatever the hell. Like, I disclaim what I'm about to say with that, because everybody's experiences are different, and anything's only as real and tangible as it is to you on the personal level. Just, you know, that I think that's an important differentiation to make here, because, like, I don't think I'm crazy. At least I don't think so. I mean, I might be a little fucking out there, but pardon my French. But, you know, like, not crazy. So when you tap into these higher, when now you've kind of gone through the point where your light body has been activated, you've defeated that element of it, you've realize that there's more to the reality around you than maybe you previously realized, even if you heard it before. Now that you've kind of experienced some elements of it, you have a greater understanding and level of gnosis about the reality that is around you. Now you're able to feel more things, both positive and negative. You're able to pick up on things and have these first degrees of intuition and clairvoyance, let's just say. Okay. But now you continue along this journey and you practice channeling your energy and focus and maintaining a 0 point. Okay. Now you're able to do things that become exceptionally unusual. And I'm here to tell you that in my experience, these things are real. Okay. And if you don't think so, that's perfectly okay. But undergo the process yourself. And if you attain these higher levels, anybody is capable of it. Okay. I am going to give a very, very recent example, okay, of one thing that I experienced. And I'm going to change the scenario and the circumstances so that, God forbid, the person that was on the other side of this ever sees this, that it's not related to that. So I was on the telephone with somebody that I hadn't talked to in some time, okay? And they needed assistance with something. Now, the place that they were at and what they needed assistance with is something that I was not very familiar with, okay? And has been a very long time since I've been there, and stands to reason that it's changed quite a bit since I've been there, okay? I said, okay, well, I start putting my memory forward and kind of start visualizing what I do remember. And it was very vague. Okay. And as this situation progressed, all of a sudden it became very clear. Okay. And I was able to say, hey, listen, why don't you check this? Why don't you check? Okay. No, not that way. Do it this way. But they're not telling me what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And they started kind of getting weirded out. They were like, what do you mean? Like, I was like, I know that you, then how do you know? I was like, I mean, I just assumed. I'm not sitting there going, and I don't even really realize so much what's happening at the time, but I'm playing this entire thing through like a very neutral state and just playing it in my head. And I was able to describe things I had never seen before, real time, and see exactly what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Obviously, it's not my first time that I've done this, and obviously it's also not something that I hadn't tried to do before with like different degrees of success. Okay. What I will say is that this was the first time that I wasn't trying to do it. But once I put myself there, I was actually there. Like, I knew things that I shouldn't ought to know. Like, saw things I shouldn't ought to know.
Yeah.
And it was also one of the first times that real time, without anybody knowing what I was actually doing, I had verbal confirmation that the things I was saying was absolutely correct. And again, like, this is stuff that I had no business knowing. Saying, no, look to your right, 3 feet. No, up. Okay,
So
now reach your hand up, and giving specific instructions and being like, do you see where this connects to that? And it looks exactly like this. And I've never seen it before in my entire life. It's weird, man.
What do they call it? Astro projecting? Is that?
That'd be remote viewing, man.
Remote viewing. Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you were remote viewing the situation without knowing it and explaining.
Well, I knew it. I knew it once I like started saying things like, oh, no, not there, and stuff like that. And she actually, they actually called me out and said, what do you mean?
How do you know where I'm putting my hands?
Yeah, exactly. That's when I kind of caught myself and I realized what was going on. It was more than me just trying to like imagine the situation and step them through it. It became, oh no, I just realized that I'm actually seeing this, you know?
Yeah.
And the way that I saw it was the same exact way that when I imagine the flow of something, when I'm looking at it, I'm like, give me a second to kind of just like connect with it for a second and figure it out. It's the same exact way that I would see the interactions and the flow. It was exactly the same as that. Like it was very real, but sort of subtle, vague, you know, very strange stuff, but very real.
Very cool.
Yep.
Yeah, a little bit different
lot of
than the
other
rest of us see things, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I've always sort of, even before any of like my practicing of these things, I think that I've always had that sort of ability a little bit, but like not even knowing at all.
Mm.
Like not even knowing at all, like
Wow.
what it was or anything. I just thought that that's how people operate. I thought that's what it was. Like we all, you know, but apparently it became pretty clear to me over time that that wasn't. So
that's a trip because I usually see things in my mind as I build them. So if you ask me to look at a system and think about what it is, I can think about the parts that it goes through, what parts you need, what part goes where, you know what I mean? Things like that, right? But I'm not telling you where to put your hands. I have no idea where your hands are or what you're playing with. You know what I mean? So it's like there's an understanding of a system, but then there's a, hey, your hands are in the wrong place. That's mind blowing.
yeah. Well, there was a part of what I was saying that I think I weirded that person out so much, like to a like degree where they jokingly said to me, they're like, "What do you have a camera down here?"
Yeah.
And at that point, I like it was toward the end, and I knew already kind of realized what was going on, and I just laughed. I was like, I was like, no, 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 I just have a hell of a memory.
Yeah. Kind of have to step sideways from that conversation.
Yeah. It's like, no, I don't have a camera, but you know.
So, hey, there was something that's going on in the chat. Sorry. Their conversation is much different than ours sometimes, Joe.
Usually.
They were talking about the ether and mass, and the ether transforms light into matter. So when you get that kind of thing going on, mass is irrelevant. Mass comes with the creation of matter. So it's not the it's not the cause, it's the effect. So
well, ether, right? So ether, in my opinion, like precurses all it's fat. It's more just like potential fabric. Like it's everywhere and it's fabric and material. Material prima materia. Pardon me. That everything can be manifest of and is a part of all, but at the same time, it's outside of frequency. So being on the other side of Planck's distance, there's no direct. This sounds silly and is counterintuitive, okay? But there's no direct interaction between ether and anything necessarily. But there is manifestation of certain potentials that in the presence of then other things that are also etheric in nature, have the manifestations of matter and the different electromagnetic effects that we observe. I don't know if that's clear.
man, your mic just got real low, Joe.
Oh, darn. I might have to quit and come back. I apologize.
Yeah. It's just like,
all right. I'm sorry, guys. I'll be right back.
So you have to look at it. How do I say? Sorry, I'm reading the comment at the same time. Fields are the ether. The fields create the ether. That's for sure. Fields, how do you detect the ether? Yes, that's true as well. Well, think about it. We have field flow of energy that goes in a circular pattern like a donut. We have a field flow of energy that goes in and turns. That creates the vortexes that go up and bottom. But you also have a null zone in the center. Now, that null zone is where the first frequency gets placed. So if you see your null zone as a scalar, then scalar creating the frequency in the scalar creates the actual 0 point, because the 0 point is created by the fields coming in and opening that 0 point, opening that field for a pure scalar to exist in between it. So that's how I see it. If there's no motion, well, everything has motion in it. It doesn't matter if you're on a flat surface and it's making triangles, you're still creating motion. Let's see what else we got in here.
There we go. I think.
There you go. Yeah, you got it.
Sorry about that, everybody.
So we're talking about the ether, Joe. I'll just kind of fill you in a little bit. And this goes to the 0 point or the null point in the ether. And you had talked about this in your list that you gave us a while back. Okay. So here's what I said, and I'll repeat it, and then you can jump in. We have a rotational flow that goes this way in a circle like a toroid. We have a flow that goes inside and outside like this, right? Mm-hmm. Which will create the vortex going up, but it'll also create the vortex going down. In the center, we have a null point, okay? That's a 0 point, that there's nothing in there. But in order to get to the ether, those fields must interact to open the ether, okay? To open it up. And if we see it as a straight scalar field, this first time that you put frequency in there is the time that it creates a scalar field in that null point. So that's what we just said.
Yeah, that null point is made when you have counter-rotational torsion that occurs, and because it interacts in a counter-rotational way, it actually catches itself and pulls out and holds open. And in between of it, it can neither be rotating in one direction or the other in the point of equilibrium. So, yeah, that's that.
Well, okay, so Jarvis disagrees with fields create the ether.
I disagree with fields create the ether too, but you know,
tell me where I'm wrong.
Because ether is omnipresent, in my opinion. It's more access to the ether itself that becomes difficult, because you're especially when you're talking about our physical reality as human beings on planet Earth.
So hold on. Is it as sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but I think I have to. I'm talking about opening it up to find the ether, and the ether's inside there like it's part of creation itself. It's always there. So
well, right. I mean, it's more like creating conditions that strip away all the other stuff that's there to give an access point to ether.
Okay, but
so it's not ether creation.
But ether is everywhere.
Ether's everywhere always. Yeah.
We don't have the apparatus to open it up.
Yeah, I mean, it's really strange when like you think about like a more pure form of base reality, which is not base reality. It's everything in a repeating fashion, flat, but also not flat, and just like everything's just a piece of the same thing. There's interconnectivity within everything. So then that's what the ether is the fabric of all that and the connections that exist.
So I am right in the fact that you have to create a device or fields in order to open up the access to the ether itself.
Yeah, I mean, yes, that's correct. I believe that to be correct. Yeah.
Okay, so what the ether is all knowing, all powerful, all there, all the time. To create access to it, we have to create a device that creates the fields in order to open it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So right. It's sort of like if you have a piece of paper and you use colored pencils and you do a drawing that covers the entire page. you need to, like, if you want to get to the page that's underneath all the colored pencil, you have to like take an eraser and like erase like a little spot. That way there's paper there. It's sort of kind of like that, because the fabric is full where we are, not full, but it's in active consumption because we're in a state of matter and energy equilibrium gradient.
Okay. So let me say this about it. And oh wow. If you put this device and you put lasers down into it, do you think they go straight down?
I mean, that's tough to say because I think that lasers being a coherent frequency, would depend on what the root frequency of your system is, whether that would depend on whether it goes through refracts or dead ends or what. I think that the interaction would be frequency dependent.
Okay. What if we looked at it as, the ether's in the center, right? If I told you that if you put device on top of device on bottom, it would actually go like this when it comes out of the top and this way out of the bottom.
I believe that.
In the center is your pure ether.
That's fair. As I think that as the waveforms compress to reach the center point of most compression, that there becomes, as far as the input scalar, as it transitions down closer and closer to equilibrium, it creates like more of a broadband wave spectrum, like a wave spectrum differential gradient as it pulls into the center. And at some point, if you put a coherent light source through, it would actually make perfect sense that there would be some, a refraction in and out with exact relationship to the flow of the particular coil, if that's what we're talking about, a coil.
It's just interesting how it all works out.
It really is. I mean, well, that's like Skinwalker, and I'm not like a big fan of that show or anything, although it's very entertaining. I actually just started watching a couple episodes of it loosely, like maybe a week or two ago. But I saw this one thing where there's like, they have the laser, they're shining it up. There's like a dead zone in this one spot where they cannot get the laser to go past like whatever it is, 300 feet off the ground or something like that. Like 300 feet off the ground, the laser just stops. If they go outside of that zone, they could shine the laser up and it'll hit the clouds. So, yeah, it's pretty interesting and weird stuff. But
what do you think stops it?
Probably a similar circumstance to what you're describing. Some type of it might not be like it's definitely like some type of energetic vortex or something to that effect. Whether or not it has a counter-rotational field on the other side of it directly there or somewhere else is another story that I just don't know. Because it's not like it went up, stopped, gapped, and then proceeded or something. It just stopped. So, I mean, it's all speculative at best.
I wonder if they got any light anywhere else when it hit that zone. Because
not there, apparently.
if it was a bubble that it hit, it would refract. You know what I mean? And go in a different area of where they're standing versus going up. So if you were creating some kind of an energy bubble there, that would be the immediate response of it. It would immediately
it becomes really complicated really fast, though, because when you start thinking like analogous, like, I mean, what you're talking about is correct, but I'm just for clarification for other people that, I'm sure you're following along, but like if you were to take like a a glass sphere rather, and shine a laser light in it, it will still go through, it'll refract out, but it'll also illuminate the globe, right? But that wasn't present here because it was a directional energy flow. right? That's sort of what would stop a dead end without that sort of refraction and glowing um, imminence. But what could be happening in that circumstance becomes much more complicated and not necessarily observable, because it could be an upper dimensional form of refraction or reflection or something like that, that's occurring that we're just not privy to because it's extra dimensional.
Yeah, I think there's two bubbles in there. One will end up refracting and turning the light, like you said, to the outside. But when you hit the second bubble, it dissolves. It all depends on the frequency.
Yeah,
If you match
that
that
could be.
frequency to the laser at some point, it's done. So
Yeah.
did they try different color lasers?
Not that I remember. I mean, kind of was watching with a grain of salt just for entertainment. I wasn't actually thinking about how I was going to work it into our material here or something at the time. But
No, no, I
I
understand.
remember it being a green laser, and they might have done a red one. It was definitely a green one.
I'll have to watch it. Kind of like one of those things that you watch at night before you go to bed, and
Mhm.
sometimes it sticks with you, sometimes it doesn't. The
Yeah.
certain parts of it. Yeah, we were talking about the History Channel about how they use their Tesla coil in order to turn something on, which, by the way, I found absolutely hilarious. And
Yeah. You're not kidding. I did too.
so they take this giant Tesla coil out there with all these massive voltages, right? They get like what 5 feet from the coil, and they had put this thing in the ground, and they go, "Oh man, we did something good, right?" And I'm laughing because I get 5 feet out of a 40-volt Tesla coil when I use cold energy, and I'm going, well, if I hit the freaking water table that was right there by that pond, which they should have done, which is only like 4 or 5 feet down, man, say goodnight, because
Yeah.
I'm taking
Not
that
for
whole
anything.
water.
That Tesla coil should have lit that light bulb at 5 feet with induction.
Yeah,
Like, I mean, so having it light off the ground isn't all that special when,
well, yeah, well, that goes to show you didn't know anything about Tesla coil, but
Yeah,
they
I
did,
thought that was
because
funny.
a spark gap Tesla coil is absolutely horrifyingly bad at that. They don't have much of a field past 5 feet. That's it. That's their limit. And then because they're made for sparks and stuff, right? So they're made out of AC. So they get a terrible like radiant energy. So you have to use DC in order to create the radiant energy you're looking for. Oh man, for 1500 volts or something, I could have made a massive field out of that if I stopped using AC and went to DC. They could have, man, they could have given themselves sunburns and everything else. Maybe set the melt the lights on their car. It would have changed it all.
Yeah, I mean, listen, for those that didn't see the episode, their ultimate goal was to more or less do the Colorado experiment, but they were doing it wildly high voltage and through the hot side. So they were trying to get into the water table, like we've kind of discussed here numerous times, because there was like a little lake or pond or whatever next to them, and they were going to try to run an RC boat off of the power from the lake at that point, which they were successful in doing. But I found it hilarious because they didn't quite get the boat in far enough, and they had the Tesla coil on, and they're like, nobody go anywhere near the water, and they're sitting there poking the boat with a stick. Like, I'm like, yeah, that's funny.
They have no idea what resonance is.
Yeah.
All they had to do was hit a resonance sympathetic resonance frequency, and that boat would have lit up all day.
Oh,
And
yeah.
they could have ran it anywhere around that lake. And you could have been wading in the water. It wouldn't have mattered one bit.
Yeah, you'd have turned that little electric motor in that boat into like an Indy car, thing would be revving like 17,000 RPM at,
You got to fry it and find out.
right, and find out. That's it. Nice
Oh,
cavitation effect off the prop, like add to the equation a little bit.
Well, what's scarier about it is, did they not know this when they had that? Because they had to have a Tesla coil expert to build it, right? So did he not tell them, hey, that doesn't work that way? I mean, or did they just do it to like put a little bit out there, like, hey, look, we're smarter than you? I mean,
They treat everything with the Tesla stuff, and they treat the Tesla coil like a novelty. and they treat the science around it as super speculative and unknown, like they're in some kind of guessing game as to what the idea of the existence of that coil was. And I think that that's been the whole nature of not only these fringe experimenters like that are trying to blow it out of the water on national television. I think that that goes hand in hand with all the bad physics that's out there too. And man, this is a bad time to be a physicist. And maybe I'm in like just like a fringe science echo chamber. Maybe I am. I don't really know. But a lot of the media that I see and consume on a regular basis just is basically making a mockery out of physics, a mockery out of physics, physicists, you know, and all these people that sit there and you know, praise the word of the established models. You know, like it's almost like the shoe went on the other foot and now they're a mockery. Like that, and people are getting sick and tired of hearing about the new particle physics that comes out because it never amounts to anything. There's no engineering application for any of it. It's just a huge waste of time, money, resources, and mind power. They're not getting to the bottom of anything, you know. And I think that even some physicists now are starting to say the same thing, but they say it there's but those ones are saying like the quiet part out loud and paying the price for it in their own community, only to end up on the other side of things with no credentials and stuff or whatever, you know, or no support for their credentials.
Think about it this way.
It's interesting.
If you wanted to take an equation and make it into a physical reality, it takes the level of the Manhattan Project in order to do it. If you understand what I mean, you're not going to do it that way. You have to take the experiments like Tesla would tell you, build it, then project, then build it again, then correct your projection, and then build it again, and continue along that line. When you're only doing one side or the other, you're going to fail. And that's just a fact. It literally takes forever to take an equation and turn it into an actual physical representation, because half the time, the representation you get is completely wrong, because it may give you the result you wanted, but it gave you 5 other results you had to ignore in order to keep that result. So all the anomalies in the system, you have to say, no, don't look at those. They belong over there on that side where we can't look at them. And that's when you fail.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, back to the woo and the light body. I'm
sorry, Joe.
No, what are you apologizing to me for? I mean, you know, usually it's you trying to reel me in. So, I mean, you know, you've caught me well.
I was on the light body path, and Joe brought me in physics, and I just right back the other way.
But it's all physics. That's the thing, and it's not different physics. It's the same physics, which is the crazy part about it. It's the same physics, and it all and what you're saying right there. And what we're talking about with light body and what we're talking about with ether, I think it's one of the best descriptions of it is, I don't even know what they call it off the top of my head, but you know the thing with the balls where it clack and then it goes and clack and then it goes and clack and then it goes. That's the same deal. Everything's a push and a pull and it's all connected. Where the differentiate, but then that leads to like butterfly effect, and it's like, well, you know, this could really lead to something else different. And to a degree, some of that is sort of true, except for one main thing, and that's where the free will of it, you know, comes in. Is that's true, but the interactions of these things and that effect is frequency based. So certain things on certain frequency planes are going to have that clack clack, you know, effect through sympathetic resonance through the ether, okay, based on its root frequencies, okay, whereas it will not be affected necessarily because it becomes scalar through a certain point until its point of interaction. That's the mechanism and explanation of entanglements, you know, is the frequency. And these things are tuned in and interconnected. And when one goes this way, the other responds. When one goes that way, the other responds. And it's all it's all resonant frequency based. And it's why not every single thing interacts with every single other thing in a butterfly effect, is because not everything is at the same base frequency. You know, like that's just simply the way it is. So how do you get to a different plane to affect things on different frequency levels? You have to adjust your frequency, whether it's through what Nathan's talking about. Because even when you're talking about cancellation, okay, when you're talking about creating, and I say cancellation, I hate the way that it says, but it's just the way people tend to say it. When you're talking about creating, you know, transverse wave function, okay, we'll call it that. All right. It is important what it was before, okay? Just because the wave frequency isn't there any longer to be detected, what its root and native frequency was is significant, because it doesn't lose that memory of that frequency.
Okay. So let me trip you out. I just wrote this down because as soon as you said that, it came into my head. We always correlate constructive with deconstructive, right? Say opposite sides of the coin. What if I told you it was constructive to interference? So it's the interference that goes in between it that's 180 degrees out of phase that changes it. So as you build one side, you have to build the other. And then this one is constructive. This is not deconstructive, but it's interference to this one. And then it goes on the same way. So we are putting the wrong word in there for the wrong thing, but we're getting the wrong result because we're putting the wrong word in there.
Hey, would you mind sending Mike Does a link? I need him to explain quantum entanglement to me, because obviously I got it all sorts of messed up.
Yeah. If you
know, maybe he'll get on here and tell me, because honestly, if I'm not saying I'm right, but if somebody else knows and to tell me that I'm that wrong, then have him explain.
Absolutely. There you go. It's set. So Mike,
yeah, dude,
come
by all
on.
means, and I'm not being a dick about it. You know, like, I want to hear your 2 cents. If it's not if it's absolutely not frequency based, I'm just interested in knowing what it is.
For quantum entanglement.
Well, I mean, last I even knew about entanglement is one of the contingencies is literally coherence. So
it says dimensional.
Okay, I mean, I'm just trying to understand. I know I'm coming across as probably like a condescending prick, but come on and tell me. I mean, I'm always interested in talking and hearing. You know, I'm trying to be engaging the chat more than I have in the past. You know, as much as I can.
Dimensions, aka geometry. Yeah, I go with that.
I mean, hey, listen, it's still analogous because we're not talking about the observation upper dimensionally, although we have coherence is a major factor in entanglement.
Oh.
Jarvis wants a link if you want to get him on. I'm always interested in hearing his 2 cents.
So funny because I have to put Mr. Lanius in there. Okay. Sent it. Just gonna have a full crew here now.
Yeah, listen, this is out of everything that we discussed, this is more controversial and fringe than any of the over unity stuff. You know, when it comes to light body and how our being is directly tied in and analogous with all the other stuff. This is way more fringe than any of that. That other stuff is way more laboratory provable than any of what I'm saying. This is like, hey, listen, take my word for it, or go experience it yourself and let me know.
Oh, I could tell you once you experience it, man, you don't want to go the other way.
Mm,
Like you will have to clinically shut off your mind to it in order to do things in a structured pattern. You know what I mean? Without having it come in there, and it's insane to think about.
yeah.
Jarvis, what's up?
Hey, man.
I think. Sorry, I was getting echoes because I was playing the live stream on YouTube, and I'm in StreamYard right now, so I think it's all good. What's up?
Yeah, Beard Power, brother. What's up?
That's right.
It's the power of the beards. Yeah, mine's the shortest all of a sudden. That's what happens when you chop down the middle.
Yeah, I finally trimmed it up on the sides a little bit. I've got to get the camera ready, right? It's a new year. Let me see. I'm sorry, I'm not used to streaming, so I can't see the chat or anything.
It's
But,
all right. Just look at the camera and tell us what's going on.
No, but Joe's the man for all the astral body stuff. I'm not really familiar. I learned a lot from him on that. But when we're saying fields create the ether, I have to disagree with that.
Well, hold on. We corrected that, and the fields open up the access to the ether.
Yeah, I kind of think the ether is the medium, right? You know, it's like a fractal. In my mind, it's infinitely dense, but it's able to pass through and create shadows and stuff. Like, you know, you can sense it when you're at really high speed, but other than that, it's just so dense and infinitely thin that it'll just pass through matter. Without high speed, you can't really sense it.
That's a good point. Which brings up another good point on the spiritual side of things. It all has to do with Planck's distance, like how significant that is when it comes to all of this. I'll never stop talking about, because, you know, it's like you said, at this infinitely fast speed, it becomes more able to be sensed, right? Well,
Right.
There's always that point at the pendulum where it's not swinging up or down. It's that infinitesimally small period of time where time is locked and motion is locked. And It's right at that point in time where, for that minuscule amount that it's over on the other side, that it's going indefinitely fast.
Yeah, and it's kind of like Zeno's paradox. Have you heard of that?
Not by that name, but I might have heard of what it is by definition, you know?
He has a lot of paradoxes, actually. Like, he's the man of paradoxes. But the one I like is, if you were to clap your hands, in order to clap your hands, first you have to go half the distance, and then you'd have to go half the distance of that, then half the distance of that, and then half the distance of that, and then half the distance. So
That's a radio frequency.
Well, the paradox is either it takes an infinite amount of time to clap your hands, because you'd have to divide it an infinite amount of times before you actually make contact. But we know it doesn't take an infinite amount of times to clap your hands. So, you know, there has to be some sort of Planck length division.
There's time involved in it. Yes. Hold on. You have to have time involved in that situation, because it will take longer for the smaller parts to get to the larger part.
That's what I'm saying. It would take an infinite amount of times to go half of half of half of half of half of half.
Yeah, because you could infinitely split halves but you can't, which is the premise of Planck's distance. You know, that smallest
right,
smallest possible distance and measure. Yeah.
They're saying the time would be equal between them.
Well, it would take an infinite amount of time, because you can always go half of a 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 for infinity mathematically. You know, so, you know, it would take an infinite amount of time if there is infinite division between the space of clapping. Does that make sense?
Yeah, to me it does. Yes.
I don't buy the infinite part. I understand the clapping in the hands. I understand the larger distance maybe being the same as a smaller distance when it equals out.
But yeah, mathematically you can take
infinite.
Right. So that's what Jarvis is saying, is it's proof of concept of a Planck's time scale and a Planck's distance scale, because it can't be infinite, or else you would never clap.
Right.
okay.
It would take-
All right.
By virtue of the clap,
Oh, no, it makes
proof of
sense.
the distance, proof of limitation.
So
Okay.
yeah, so even though I think the universe is infinite, but it has infinite scales like fractals. So it's
Well, yeah,
kind
the
of-
scale will drop off towards the end because it only carries so far. The frequency only carries as far as the sound makes it go.
yeah, I think like the research paper I showed on that first video, kind of like my saying is there's a star in every universe and a universe in every star. Every star itself, if you zoom in in the fractal structure, it resembles the large scale structure of the universe. It's got that plasma cosmology, and even though, like, if you were to shrink down to the size of an atom and exist for 1,000 years and shrink back up, no time would have a fraction of a second would have passed on Earth compared to you living on an atom for 1,000 years because of the time difference between the two scales.
No, I understand that. Yeah.
But there has to be, even though it's infinite, it still has some sort of finite structure. And I think that finite structure is what Joe's saying with Planck length and distance and stuff. It's the ether, and it's infinitely dense on each scale, and we get shadows because of that, in my opinion.
So when you look at light body, you look at meditation, you look at reaching higher self, and now you're talking about Planck's distance. I just want to explain this. If you could reach a state of zero or close to, where you're just here, and all these subtleties are going on, and you could feel those subtleties and be a part of that, in tune with in resonance with the tune of that subtle frequency, whatever it is. When that subtle frequency stops, that's sensible.
See, in my
So
opinion,
when you're able to sense it, if you're able to then channel, when you hit the piezo disc, okay, in this case metaphorical, but probably less metaphorical than I'm making it sound. When you hit the piezo disc at that absolute moment of stillness that's easily differentiated between the lesser stillness on either side of it, boom, amplification and ability to ascend to higher states of consciousness, okay, during that infinitesimally small time.
Mhm.
Okay, now, because you're outside in that moment of time, space, as we experience it generally, you may physically only be out of, conscious of that space, okay, for what would seemingly be from an outside perspective for an unnoticeable amount of time. Yet during that smallest amount of time, because you've exited at that point, time and space no longer matter, and you could cover extreme distance once you're able to clock out of that.
Right.
And that's the point of all this. It's the piezo disc. It's exactly what it is. It's shooting the spark at that exact moment that allows for the profound exploration and experience of a lifetime, is worth of time, if it so be it, all in a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a second.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
it's wild to think, because that's just simply what it is.
Well, hold on. So let me show you my little drawing here. Okay. I'm no artist by any means. So if we took the inside as if I can get the camera to just accept it. There you go. If I just told you the inside was the galaxy, and I told you this is the way the field functions, the center point would go out in a longer distance than it would radiate up and down. And what I'm trying to say there is each line that's written in the spiral would have a different time in each single one of them based on the distance. And it would be no difference in the frequency and breaking up the frequency. To the center point of the galaxy, the energy is one span from one to the outside. But on the inside, it's different layers of that frequency in order to get to the outside. So that's the way I see it. So the center point always has more energy in it because it's what radiates the furthest, where the top and bottom wouldn't.
Okay.
That's just my thought on it.
I mean, I get that. Yeah.
There was another one. Here was, sorry, I like drawing pictures. This is one from earlier. This is the ether.
Yeah, it's sort of like that, repeated over and over again and fifth dimensionally. Yeah.
So you have the top and bottom two circles are toroids, and they're spinning in one direction. And then you have fields that come in the other, but you're opening it up to the 0 point in the center. So if I had a toroid on the top, toroid on the bottom, and I opened it up, it would look like this, where the center point itself is the ether that I'm trying to get to. It's just the access to the ether I have to open with fields.
Right.
And then that's basically what I'm trying to say here. And then if you put a laser in the top, it should refract outward and make that diamond shape in the center.
Gotcha. Yeah, I just wanted to say, that, fields, it's like I was saying in chat, like, it's kind of how we detect it, but you can get at it through manipulating fields, I believe, like what you're saying.
Yeah, that's
But
what I'm saying.
I don't think the fields are the ether. I think they're the effect of ether.
Well, they're just revealing it. It's probably a better way to say it.
That's
They're
so,
revealing
so when you have the etheric, when you have our atmosphere, our existence, our physical reality, right? There's all this stuff going on that we don't see, whatever, like going on, right? When you create fields that are compressing and then expanding and then counter rotating, it does create a vacuum space at that smallest 0 point that is clear of all the interference, as we'll call it for purposes of this, that then gives us access to a state of pure potential, the fabric that is the ether. So it's not creating the ether, it's rather creating an environment for there to be ether access.
So
That's
basically
sort
what
of the
you're
way.
saying
Gotcha.
is if we wanted to get to ether, we just basically have to take the sheet that covers everything, tear a big hole in it, and look
But
inside.
my question is, why
And
are
there
we
it
trying
is.
to get ether? Like, what, why do we even need to?
Well, because it's in that vacuum that where that energy potential is, that through the forces input in, the native forces input in, and their interactions within the systems, that there could be that extracting the manifest of greater than put in is potential, because you're exciting the potential of the ether. It's
But
my
you get-
opinion, and I could be very wrong, that
You get
the
potential,
manifestation is disturbance in the ether.
but you just charge anything and you get potential. I mean, so like, why do you like? If it's so thin that it passes through and produces shadows, like, I don't even understand. It's got such high energy density because it is fractal. It keeps going. Like, it doesn't stop at the Planck length. That's just one next level. And then there's, like, in my opinion, if the universe is infinite and the speed of light in our perspective is c, then as you go up to the next star level, if you will, the light that we see relative to them would be c squared, because it's traveling at square the speed of light relative to their time perception of time. So
Yeah.
like, we don't go.
I mean, what you just said opens up so many cans of worms for me, as far as like responses go, but like it would just go so far off the rails that like that's a whole, like, we need to cover that one day.
But that's what I was trying to get at with quantum entanglement. We don't know for sure that it's infinite speed. It could be c square speed, right? That entangles it. And if you cover the whole diameter of our galaxy, 100,000 light years, it takes a fraction of a second to send a signal from one side of the galaxy to the other at the speed of light squared, where it would take 100,000 years at the speed of light. So we don't know if it's actually, the quantum entanglement has a limit, just like Planck limit. You know what I mean? And that limit could be so fast that it's just we're unable to detect the quantum entanglement. But it
Correct. I
could-
mean, yeah, and I absolutely agree with that. But that's semantical because for practical purpose and for, it's when you start reaching the upper crust and limits of this stuff, then it becomes much more relevant. But like, you know,
right.
no, hang on one second because it was a while back already, but I don't want to forget to address it. So I mean, Eighth Center had asked about the uh metaphor that I was making with the piezo disc or piezo buzzer, right? All that is it's it's a quartz shock basically that's going to be used at the right moment to um amplify the system. So that was the metaphor that I was making with the use of a piezo buzzer in some of these coil systems, uh, you know, being analogous to subtle energy and blank spaces in that energy, and then taking personal self energy and projecting it at that exact space and time to be able to have profound experiences. That's such a high level of meditative practice that kind of takes. That I mean, I'm not claiming that every time I go into a meditation, or even most of the time when I go into a meditation, that's achieved. And frankly, sometimes it's not even achieved in meditation. I just want to throw that out there. Sometimes it's achieved sort of abruptly and randomly, okay? But because of your meditative practices where you exist in, you don't just stop meditating and then you're out of that state. You're able to maintain these states through practice and through self work and things of that nature and awareness, right? So sometimes you'll just be um, at this point of just maybe relaxing, and you'll fall into it that fast. It's crazy. Without notice or anything, sort of like
Right.
falling asleep, but not.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times, if you ever catch yourself like, and it happens to regular people that don't practice meditation too, in extreme states of relaxation, like if you've ever gotten the sensation like you're falling asleep and you're falling and then you jolt and you wake up immediately, you just stop that process from happening. If you would have just let it gone, you would have ended up there. You probably would have woken up like 1 second later, not even knowing what just happened or how long it's been, and it's only been 1 second. And you would think like, oh man, how long was I asleep for? It happens to people that don't even practice meditation, but generally your body is so frightened and taken back by it that it has an impulse response to kick you out of it.
Right. And you're told by everybody that is woo. So you don't, you think it's just a hiccup that that was just a coincidence or something, and brush it off.
Yeah, right. Or you think, oh man, I was falling asleep and I just snapped myself out of it or something like that. It's really not what's happening. At least most of the time. It could be sometimes, but not most of the time.
And when you start thinking that everything is connected, perhaps through a fractal structure of the universe, I mean, it makes a lot more sense where space and time, I mean, exist everywhere all at once. And, there's divisions of it and everything, but if everything's connected, I don't see why you couldn't use concepts like quantum entanglement to get into those states. But it's almost, I guess what Mike was saying, it is kind of dimensional, because I see dimensions on repeating scales. So
as above, so below. It's the same, and it's not even that it's slightly different. It's just mechanism and fabric thereof.
Yeah, and they have time scales that we'll never understand. Like I said, you could exist for 1 million years at the size of an atom, and an electron circling like the moon does for us, and pop back to our scale, and like virtually no time would have passed.
Yeah, but you're in time dilation, and they're talking space time.
Well,
You know what I mean? You're in a field upon a field upon a field upon a field. You know what I mean? You're in time dilation. They're in space time. They're thinking the space is flat You know what I mean? And then
Yeah.
time intersects that. So it's a bit different.
Well, it's
Yeah.
unique. I mean, I can't say definitively, okay, but my own practices and my own postulations have led me to believe that when if you were to be able to remove yourself from this, okay, and just look down upon it, okay, what you're going to see is that everything has its own locality, everything, okay, and all these localities are in connection with and related to that within its own relative proximity. All right. And they may have different time dilation fields and so on and so forth, but to actually view the passage of time externally is such a unique thing because it becomes looking at a fourth dimensional object, which is more or less two three-dimensional objects, one within another, but connected. And it's not really one within another. They're simultaneously inside and outside of one another. The only way that that's possible, and for you to visualize it from our perspective here, but from an external source, is if it's continuously moving in and out of itself, and that is the passage of time, the movement, and the manifest of time itself. So if you picture all of these little bubbles of locality being subject to this motion, all to different degrees depending on its relationship with the other localities around it and the gradient diffuse that exists within this spectrum. Okay, that's I mean, in words, I mean, there's some things that are difficult to put in words because this is not part of the common.
It's not.
This is not part of the common discussion. So all you could do is describe it in ways that are tangible based on our experiences, which our language is based upon, which is mostly why most of the highest knowledge and readings was all metaphorical, because there's no words to describe what I'm saying. I can make words up, but then nobody will know what I'm talking about. So what's the difference?
Well, how would you explain like when you have a dream and it seems like an hour long, but it's really like 5 minutes in reality?
Well, I mean, that's because your brain is a locality within your body, within the locality of your home, within the locality of your neighborhood on planet Earth, in the solar system, in the universe, in the galaxy, in the universe. You know what I mean? So it's all these localities. Your brain, if it reaches certain forms of coherency, lobe coherency, could create time dilation through the perspective of that locality, non-observable from the outside perspective.
Right. I kind of see it as a compression during that state, because like if you were to like shrink down to the size of an ant and somebody stepped on you, it looked like the foot's coming at you like, ooh, but to them it's just an instant, right?
Well, ever notice how somebody who doesn't get good sleep or doesn't sleep for days on end, how they just look like shit?
Yeah.
And they look older and worn, and it's because they're just continuously running at Earth speed always. The reason that there's a refreshment period that exists is because, in my belief, it would make sense that there's a form of time dilation going on, allowing for the defragmentation of the mind to keep some sort of coherent, mind, spirit, soul coherency.
Right, because people that are in like completely sensory deprivated chambers and stuff, they start to lose their mind.
That's because they don't know how to let go.
There's no sensation, and like, so what we were saying about the child born without senses, like they just completely start to go out of body, just from the sensory deprivation.
Yeah, I've actually always wanted to try that and never have. Float tanks seem really, really cool. Definitely.
Yeah, but you better, like Nathan says, you better have the right frame of mind before doing something.
Oh yeah.
Well, right. Yeah, I mean, it's hard for people to discover things about themselves, enter back into the real world with no way to get back to where they were to rectify their issues without going inside of a chamber that they have to pay for. So
you imagine if that's what the coma's like? You're stuck in a time dilation field that you can't pull yourself out of.
Oh yeah.
I don't doubt that that's probably what it is like. In fact, who's to say that the mechanism of a coma is not checking out and then being unable to return?
Mm-hmm.
Until your body fixes itself? Like mine shuts it off for you to come back until your body's fixed?
Could be.
Frankly, that makes total sense. What if you sustain trauma that knocks you unconscious, like physically unconscious, at that exact moment of that pause? Because then you're out, but you don't know how to get back in, potentially, or there might be a physical mechanism that prevents you. And frankly, that's a wonderful definition of what a coma probably is.
I think I've heard stories of, it was either a near death or a coma, but this guy had an out of body experience during that and saw like a red shoe on the roof and had mentioned it to the nurse when he came to, and they checked on the roof and there was a red shoe, and like he could explain the conversations that were going on when he was supposedly brain dead. And, so yeah, a coma, that's a good thought. Like, it may be such a huge shock that it does just jar you loose of that. Like you said, a crystal vibrating so fast that maybe you can actually vibrate it out of your system if you're in enough shock to escape the pain or whatever is causing the disconnect.
Well, that'd be crazy, because if you could use a crystal in order to resonate another crystal, but you found the way to get in there, you could stop that coma just like that. You could change the frequency of it and immediately pull yourself out. It's like creating a hole inside of it and saying, come on out. It's a disruption, or like I was trying to say earlier, it's an interference.
Or it could entrain your brain waves and maybe bring it back into a resonance.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Just like you put a shock to the body, it restarts different parts of your heart when they put those paddles on you. It could just be the same thing. It's just you don't know how to access it right now.
Right. I can see that.
Yeah, right. Right. A coma could be viewed as like no different than being in an AFib or something, where you're just in a state of a bad pattern. Basically, you're in a bad pattern that doesn't allow for that connection, conscious physical conscious connection to be made. That doesn't mean that you lose all consciousness, though.
If we could go woo, I did hear on the dark side of the moon they have avatars where aliens can literally astral project into the bodies on the moon, almost like a form of teleportation, and inherit the avatar body on the moon, and then they can astral project back to Earth. So it would be like a form of teleportation through astral projection.
Hold on.
Yeah, that's really cool, but I like where you're going with it.
Yeah, I do too. So hold on. You got an avatar on the moon, and you can astral project yourself to that body,
into the body,
just like the Avatar movie, and then roam around up there and do what you got to do and come home.
Yeah, and then astral project back. Yeah.
Now
So like, cool. If that's the case, then there's no more need for trying to make wormholes and trying to do it. Our bodies are holy temple. If we figure that one out, we can just astral project places. And
now, the one thing I will throw out there, though, based on my own experiences at least, is there has to be higher forms of more efficient forms where that would be practical, where there's nearly no differentiation through that astral projection, because albeit some states are more real than life itself in those moments in time, the experience is somewhat disconnected from physicality in ways, so I guess if it's a matter of taking control of an avatar, maybe it would be more directly related to physicality, but where's the means in the end to that? How does that really benefit anything?
Right.
So
hopefully, if it is true, hopefully they're androids instead of human beings, maybe a clone of themselves or something. It would make sense if it were a clone of yourself. It would make sense, DNA.
Right. I could get that. Sure.
So hold on. in ancient Egypt, was it Anubis or who was the other one that was in there? It was the sister of. Sorry, I got the wrong name probably. Let's just say in Egypt you had the person that was in there, and I don't think it's Seth, but they could transport their consciousness between bodies as long as the bodies had the same resonance frequency. Gerald was talking about this on one of our lives for the Egypt thing, and he was talking about, and I'm sure, Cyrus.
Osiris.
Cyrus was the one. So when they said they took him apart and put his parts in different places, he could have very well been a robot at that point, and he was astral projecting himself into the consciousness of the robot. And when they put him back together, he was able to put his consciousness back together so that he can go back to his normal form.
Well, this is what we talked about with the Ankh, and how the Ankh has a native resonant frequency and could well be active enough to bring whatever possesses it into that same sympathetic resonance, and that itself could act as a key to a gateway to allow for physical, woo stuff that
I mean,
Well, it's really
physical woo stuff that may lead to you being able to go from point A to point B, let's just say, but without dematerializing, because or without getting that shock from the current in the lake that runs the boat, sort of deal,
yeah.
that sort of thing.
and these topics lead credence to possessions and stuff where there's multiple personalities within an individual, and I have heard you can use binaural beats to help with astral projection, and I think
I have
you? I heard it's
Yeah,
a great technique. And in Egypt, all the tuning forks and all the audio and stuff, it just makes sense you would go more so on an audio level, because our brainwaves are, when alert, it's Schumann, right? And then you have the other beta, Charlie, or delta waves and everything that are
theta, yeah.
But they're usually, your alert one is not much higher than the Schumann resonance, I believe. So you would need something like an audio type of thing for entrainment, and the binaural beats.
Well, the entrainment has to do with hemispherical synchronization, and the entrainment has just as much that type of entrainment for actual projection has just as much relevance when it comes to focusing powers, because like as it stands natively, the equilibrium of flow is bifurcated, the hot and the cold, the right and the left. These things need to be integrated and in motion and in balance in order for these things to happen. So when you're trying to focus energy and like create chi energy, for instance, in your hands, it's all about the flow of the energy in equilibrium to bring it together. When it comes to astral projection in that regard, it's about taking the right and the left and having them, rather than perform their separate functions and only communicate with each other very limited. It's about training new neural pathways to bridge that gap. Exactly. That's what that's about.
Mm-hmm. I haven't tried it,
but trust me, it's highly effective. Highly effective.
Okay, let me jump in here. So you're trying to impart something on the body, right? When you're putting those things in your ears and you're trying to get the frequencies, and then two frequencies to change the frequency of the center.
The hemispheres with the binaural beats.
So you're trying to put them in resonance. Well, your delivery system isn't but 10% of what you can get.
The delivery?
Yeah. So you're not, you're not at the speed you could be in to synchronize everything. So when I tell you about structured water, you start to understand why it's so important. Because what's our body made of? 70, 80% water.
Right. Water is key.
in order to really change some frequencies, you're going to have to go into the woo and
Mhm.
figure out what I'm trying to tell you. There's a faster way to do everything, and it's more constructive than what you're thinking.
Right.
And it's not hard to align the left and right. You always have to have a yin and a yang, but they're
Right.
not destructive to each other. They just have interference to each other.
Right. Yeah, I can see where you're going with that.
So, sorry, I'd love to say much more, but I can't. But
I
I understand where I'm going. It's a
I
much
Yeah.
easier way to do
One
it.
day we'll do a rumble, huh?
Yeah.
yeah.
We keep on saying that, but one day we'll do a rumble.
Yeah. It's a shame we gotta like tiptoe around certain things.
Well, yeah, because there's a whole gigantic door I could blow wide open on it, and with proof, and I can't say a word about it.
I do like the Rumble idea. That just means I have to open up another account though. It's
Yeah, well, it's
just not
the
gonna
way of
wait.
it.
for the first time I'm like doing Facebook. But no,
Very impressed with that, by the way. It only took a couple months, but
Oh, you got on Facebook?
I finally did it. Yeah. Well, I've been on a little bit to talk to Sean. He's been my only friend for a month.
I should link to me, but I warn you, you may get a funny picture every once in a while. 2 in the
that's-
morning, man. I'm out there making spoofs. It's funny.
I love it.
I hand tailor all the stuff I send out to people depending on the person I'm talking to. So Brandon got a Happy New Year's toast from me. Cheers.
Well, if
You
you,
know
can't
what
laugh
I'm
at
talking
yourself, yeah, I've got a good sense of humor, so you can do whatever.
Amen.
Well, let me hold on. Just so we can all laugh a little bit. And by the way, Ben's seen this and had a good laugh with it.
Long
I'll show it to you.
episode. I thought Nathan was going to do something with the foot long.
So at 2 in the morning, this is what I do.
I'm laughing with you, Ben. No, I'm not.
I gotta put my face in there next. We all gotta
I pity
do
the
it.
fool.
Unfortunately, man, this is where I'm at 2 in the morning. So if you try to contact me around then, that's what you get.
That's awesome.
Oh, just have some fun.
Hey, listen, I could have a more bomb friggin' mohawk than Mr. T, for real. Mine would be like 18 inches long.
Dude, you should do it.
Yeah. Right.
It's so funny because Joe sends me the topic for the day, right? And then I get it and I twist it in some weird fashion like that, and I send it back to him, and he's like, he's probably thinking to himself, oh my God, what the hell is he thinking today? Right? And then like after maybe an hour, I'll get it together and finally send him a good one for the thumbnail. That's
Yeah,
the way it works.
Facebook more, I guess. I'm missing out. I don't see
Oh.
chat, though. This is weird. I'm in private chat.
Are you on your phone?
No, I'm using a webcam right now.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll figure it out for you by the next time you get on.
Yeah, I was in private chat.
That's why.
Oh,
Easy
that would do it right there.
That was easy. All right.
Oh man, sorry.
Do we have
I'm
any
gonna
questions?
laugh a little bit.
I'd love to see Randy Savage with him though.
Randy Savage with what?
With Ben.
Oh, with Ben?
He's
Oh,
yeah.
that's right. He did say snap into a Slim Jim. Oh,
Slim Jim.
Jarvis pulled you out, Ben. That's it. Gonna have to do it. Oh, that's great. No, I gotta start doing.
Have you guys heard the snoring all episode, by the way, for all 2 hours?
no.
Oh, who
No.
was snoring for 2 hours?
My dog.
Oh,
I just got a dog this week. It's funny. He snores so loud. It's like irresponsibly loud. And his farts smell worse than mine.
oh,
What kind of
He's a
dog?
good boy though. Oh, you heard me say that word, huh? Or he's been there the whole time, just sitting there sleeping.
because you're telling on him.
Lazy.
Yeah, if it's a puppy, they got the worst farts for some reason.
Yeah, he's not a puppy anymore, but yeah, that's
It's like
that bad.
and puppy breath and farts and like I
Ugh.
don't know, they're just born nasty, man.
Yeah, no, his breath doesn't smell bad. I'm happy about that. That's good. I'm gonna try to keep it that way.
My think is in the eye of the beholder. We all like our own brand.
Well, that's it. My buddy was like, dude, you got to do something about that dog's farts. I was like, so going back to where we always used to joke about, I was like, well, I could always put a butt plug in it in his ass with like a little heart gem at the end or something. And he's like, bro, I don't think he'd like that too much. I was like, either that or you have a twinkle in his eye.
You know the
Oh man.
you know the trucks with the steel balls on the tailgate. You could do that with the butt plug.
Oh my God. Where this conversation has descended, man.
Right. We went from ascension to descension. We're back on planet Earth now. Spin on the spiral and still be a human. That's that.
Maybe you can help me find some good binaural stuff though. That does interest me.
Absolutely. I'll send you some stuff. And anybody that wants any sort of binaural training or different audio meditative stuff, I can help them out with that. Just always send me something. And frankly, between me and anybody here that's watching, anybody that wants any sort of, kind of personal coaching on that sort of stuff, it's a lot to go through and it's a lot to kind of contend with and whatnot. Reach out to me directly. I'm always more than happy to help people out. The more people that kind of go through these processes and like experience it, the better off everybody in humanity is. Trust me, I tell you. So, always more than happy to help people out. And if nothing else, it'll bring improvements in the way you see your life. People will tell you, like on YouTube and stuff, if you change this, you change your world. If you change, you can manifest things just simply into existence and all this.
I don't think it's that easy.
I'm here to tell you that, I mean, there may be some truth to that, but it's far more complicated than anybody has ever said on the internet. And it's not that simple and it's not that easy and it's not like you think it is in the first place. But
just the power of prayer though, in a way.
I mean, it goes a lot deeper than that. Like, I mean, it's, you have to put a lot of energy behind your own desires and beliefs to then empower yourself to do it. But where it really comes in is, there's like certain cues in your life that really are calls to action. We all get callings all the time, as far as like little hints of what we should or shouldn't do, and most of the time these things are super subtle, super not obvious. And when you're all over the place, right, you really can't pick up on it and see it as an opportunity or see it as like a call to action or something. But when you get into the right place, and then you're in this, hoping for it, visualizing it, wanting to see it, and then you're also able to pick up on these cues. Now you're able to call to action and the things do actually come to you. Like, it's absolutely true. The thing is that most people are just too out of balance to be able to see these things, and I'm not saying I'm a professional at it, because I look around my life and my life is kind of shit, but I think it's okay. So like, and that's sort of what it is too. Like, it's all where you put your mind and your energy.
You think speaking it into existence with affirmations is important?
One thing I will tell you is that there's fine lines with all of this stuff, and there is such a thing as white magic and dark magic, because physical reality is all just a matter of manipulation. And I hate to say it, but even when you have the best of intentions and you want good, it's still manipulating things for good. But there's a fine line there, and there's a big gray zone in between where, it becomes a little ambiguous and it could go either way. I've seen people say a lie so many times that the treatment of the situation becomes in line with what they're saying. Their actions become in line with what they're saying. And what ultimately happens is they change the environment around them so much by speaking that thing that isn't even manifest at that time. And then it ends up manifesting to be true in the end.
Mhm.
So it's wild and crazy, but the more you say, you believe, and you act as if something is the case, there becomes a much like orders of magnitude greater likelihood that that will ultimately come to be.
So
Self-
hold on. But you're talking about it's like CNN, but in the end, it's not true. So
When
in
is
your case, it may become true, but in theirs, it never did.
When information and environments come in tune with a narrative, it becomes the truth, whether it's objective truth or not. And when it starts being acted upon as if it's true and it's believed, it then becomes truth and manifests in all of its reality.
I think you
Okay,
just
so
said
like
it right there.
people who
Belief
watch
is
CNN.
belief.
You believe it's true and you act as if it's true,
Yeah.
it
Like,
it becomes the reality.
there's even epigenetics on the power of belief. This guy named Bruce, God, I forgot his last name, but he proved like just by the power of belief, you can literally, it's called epigenetics. You can literally control your RNA and DNA and change at a cellular level just by the power of belief itself.
Man, I tell you,
100%. I could tell everybody here how to become a millionaire. Okay. But you're going to have to be something that is like, and this is why I'm not, is because like I refuse to dilute myself to the point of acting out of coordinates with myself. Right. Do you follow that realm of it? Okay. But here's how you become a millionaire. You say, you know what? I'm going to become a millionaire. You're going to walk around and you're going to say to yourself, every single thing you do, how does a millionaire that keeps his money act? What actions does he take? How does he talk? Who does he associate with? How does he interact with people? And this is how I'm now going to act. And I'm not going to act like what it's going to be in the future. I'm going to treat the future as right now. So, rather than hang out with my mechanic buddy, I got myself a retired dentist friend in his, early 40s. And I got myself a doctor that holds a board job. And I got myself a CEO friend. And we're going to go out and I'm not going to, we're not going to go out and be spendy because I don't have that yet. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go out and associate with them, gain these connections, talk the talk, walk the walk, make these friendships. I'm going to sit there and be like, hey, I have this thing going on. I want you guys along, and we're going to, bond over it. Next thing you know, you're now in with people that have already made their way, and maybe they made their way in professional circumstances, whatever have you. But what will end up happening is they'll see something you're good at and a reason that they like you, and they're going to say, hey, that's a huge opportunity. Like that's something that you're not doing with that you're good at. And this is how the opportunities open up. You have to be subtle to these things. You have to play the game and do it exactly as you imagine it being, and by associating with the people that are in tune, in line with where you want to be. When you do this, it will come. It will not happen instantly, and if as soon as you falter, you'll be right back to where you were. That's it. It works. It'll work so long as you believe it will. That's it. It's really that simple.
Yeah, I was just trying to interject a joke in there, Joe.
Sorry.
And you really got to be a millionaire. Like, I just really don't even have a desire to be a millionaire, to be honest. You know what I mean? Like,
I think it's an example for what it's worth. No, I'm throwing it out there because I mean, I've been wealthy at a point in time, and I'm telling you right now, like,
yeah,
a lot of problems that you have go away, and a lot of new ones come.
mm-hmm.
So
it's not necessarily all good,
No, it's not. But
yeah,
the reason I use that example is just because I feel like most people that try to have that mindset, engage them, it's all about self gain. Which
right,
you got to realize something. You're always going to go further when there's no self gain involved, and things will pave themselves for you a lot smoother when it's not about self gain. And a lot of times, the self gain will actually come as a result of doing something not for self gain under the same exact premise.
exactly.
Same exact premise.
Yep.
So what if they're looking at it differently? They don't. It's not necessarily the money; it's what the money brings to them. It's the prestige, it's the look, the everything else. So the money isn't as important. So, but when you're poor, you could focus on what you want, and every time you focus on what you want, it takes time to get there. So then you achieve that level. But when you're rich, you don't know what you want, and you can't choose. But if the object is not the wealth, but it's the prestige and everything else, and the wealth just comes with it, then maybe that's why you're rich.
Right. And
It's just a different way to look at it.
I've never had a lot of money, but I actually prefer, like, it makes me more innovative. I really love inventing things, and like we were watching Lid Motor the other day and just throwing things from the house together and just doing it as simple as possible, like you say, with as few components as you can. I enjoy it, like I could live outside in a tent and I'd be fine because I believe God has already given me everything I need. And the best things in life are free anyways. So I'm just content, I don't necessarily want to be rich or famous. I think that it's just not me,
Yeah, and again, I mean, I just throw that out there as an example because I feel like
No,
most people that seek out this information,
right.
that's sort of what they're after, only to be sorely disappointed because they haven't undergone the processes to be in that situation to ultimately fully embrace it the way that would need to be. And they're going about it for a reason that's not going to necessarily easily unfold for them. And frankly, once they achieve it, whether that's ultimately what they expected or not is another story entirely.
It's just like with alchemy, like you can't become a philosopher without another one. But basically, you got to prove that you're not selfish. And if you do ever produce gold through alchemy, you're forbidden to ever sell it anyways. You can give it away, but through deep alchemical teachings, if you produce gold, you're damned to hell, basically, if you ever use it for selfish reasons. So,
yeah,
just throwing that out there.
Well, right, and that could be said in the metaphorical self sense as well. That if you enlighten yourself, enrich yourself to a place of exuding loyalty and kindness and love and this and that for other people, but you're exuding it for a purpose of self gain and not a genuine purpose, then realistically you're nothing. You're a fraud at that point. That's what it is a fraud.
Mm-hmm.
Grifter,
absolutely.
Yep. Just philanthropy is so important to me because through philanthropy you will be rich. Just you don't necessarily need money to be rich.
Yeah, I think we all
curbing desire is a difficult thing though, so because we all have things that we want, no matter how enriched you may be. Like there's still things that you want to see for yourself, good things and whatnot.
Yeah,
and
you gotta have money. I mean, you gotta have it.
I mean, like God help me, but it's putting the little kitty on a pedestal. Like why aren't I getting any? Well, it's because you're putting the kitty on a pedestal. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like that's it. Like when you put it on a pedestal, you don't get it.
Right. That's right. That's it.
Yeah.
Wow.
You're self-fulfilling prophecy. You want it so bad that you're actually making it worse. I don't know.
Yep. Stop calling the kitties and start feeding them because they're hungry, and then maybe one day one will come to you.
Wow.
Yeah, there you go.
Yep.
Just let it be, and don't dwell on it so much. You just gotta, I don't know, just faith is just important to me. I mean, I can't.
Oh, that's the critical component
Yeah,
in all of it, man.
yeah. But I guess
I've known faithless people, and faithless people are impossible propositions.
Mm.
And that's not for you to show them faith. They need to discover their own faith. Like that's the only thing one could do in that case is expose to them from your perspective that there's a lack of faith involved, and they're either gonna question that, see it, and then do something about it, or they're not. And usually they won't because they lack faith.
Would you like it to hear a paradox I came up with for people that are atheists and don't have faith?
Sure.
A lot of atheists, you'll ask them, so before you were born, were you dead? And some people that have faith and stuff, maybe they believe in reincarnation, will have different answers, but they say, yes, there is nothingness. It was just, yeah, I did not exist. I was dead before I was born. There lies the contradiction. You're already dead before you're born, so you've been born after death already. Matter is energy, so we're basically ghosts right now. So if you think you were dead before you were born, this is life after death staring you at the face.
Yeah, and like most of those people somehow, like, because they feel the need to defend their position, will come up with some kind of pseudoscientific reason or whatever have you as to why that. Well, no, I wasn't dead. I was just not, and it just falls apart because it's unexplainable. Which is why it's a paradox. But to them, they'll have to stick with that because
yeah, and they think when they die, it's going to be similar to how it was before they were born. But that's the contradiction. Is if it's just nothingness, like how they were before they were born, and you're returning to that state, and it's already happened now, that it can't happen again.
Yeah. Remember that human beings are very special because we sweat. If there's no other takeaway for people from this episode other than that, then you've succeeded. Because hot and cold, and we sweat.
Yeah, dogs got a pant.
That's right. What other animals sweat?
Do pigs?
Nope, they cover themselves in mud.
Oh, that's right. Horse?
No.
They feel sweaty when I used to work with horses.
Are they? Maybe they do. I said no quickly, but I could be very wrong. I don't know of any other animal off the top of my head that sweats.
Yeah, it is interesting. Yeah.
Most animals seek refuge.
I wanted to make a Peltier cooling vest for dogs, so if they're ever in a car, and even with the AC running, they could at least have like some cooling method, because that's the only way they can cool off is through panting and some like active cooling, since they can't sweat. It's just one of the inventions I have that I throw out there.
Listen, I think that's a great idea.
So here's one for you, Joe.
Okay, there we go. There's the answer.
The hippos sweat, really?
That's an unusual one because they spend a lot of time in water.
Yeah. Interesting.
I guess it's hot water. They are in Africa.
I doubt there'd be any insects that would sweat. I don't know.
No.
Yeah. At least they're not what you can see.
They like worms kind of have like a mucus thing, but I don't think that's sweat.
That's not sweat. Yeah, that's a whole nother function.
Gross.
But I'm actually late for something, so I'm gonna have to sign off. But
All right, Jarvis. Well, it's been real, brother.
Right on,
Thanks.
brother.
Thank you, guys.
All right, I'll catch you later, man.
All right.
Oh man. Wow, we went off the rails big time, Joe.
Yeah, I mean, not too bad. We kept it pulling back. That's always a good thing. Yeah, but there's definitely again, the key to all of this goes back to your balancing yourself, your light body, nurturing that, and being able to understand what it is, which is the first key, and everything we discussed last time to be able to activate it, and then the things that you could bring out of it are really profound and really, could bring a lot of good in your life, a lot of realization, and is directly analogous to all of the electromagnetic stuff and electrodynamic stuff that we discuss on the channel on a theoretical basis all the time, because all of these processes undergo everything all the same. It's just the moral of the story. So
Yeah, well, the whole intention of creating one of these devices is to amplify frequency.
Yeah.
I mean, if you really think about it, why else would it play with your body in that way? They have crowd control devices that amplify frequencies, and they're destructive. So they make you want to puke, they make you want to poo yourself. You know what I mean?
Note.
Yeah, you're just brown noting everywhere. Yeah, it's bad. So it's not like we don't know this stuff. So
Yeah.
What if they turned it to a good frequency? Would we all be jumping for joy? Would we be happy if Kamala got elected president or something? I mean, would they have to turn it on? It's that bad? But I mean, that's kind of the thing. It's you get joy out of certain stuff and destructive stuff out of others. So I don't know, happy or poo.
Well, if that was the deep state black project psyop that they were trying to do, they probably were very unsuccessful. Either that or it backfired. Everybody was happy. They were happy to pull the trigger red. This is great.
Yeah. that was the happy part.
Bye.
This 4 years is finally over. We can get back to normal life. Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be the good part.
Yeah. That bitch fell right out of the coconut tree.
Dude, the guy's like a half-dead zombie. How in the world are we happy with that? I mean, what the hell's wrong with us?
That came up yesterday on your stream it's like, well, what if Philip brought it up, and he's like, well, what if Biden was like, no, I'm staying in office? It's like, dude, he didn't make it through a single term.
Yeah.
like he was dead on arrival, that guy.
Yeah.
Like you're not gonna another term. You're not gonna get another month out of him.
I mean, seriously, who is the whack job behind the screens pulling for everything? I mean, who screwed us up so bad that they said Trump was unelectable, and then all of a sudden he's the most electable man in the world because you are so shitty at your job. I mean, who the hell did that to us? It wasn't the guy in charge. Was she really pulling the strings, and like we ended up in the shitstorm that fucking came out of it? I mean, it's horrible.
And this is and by the way, back to magic. Okay, this is the reason that these manifestation techniques for dark purposes are dangerous, because when you blow smoke up the ass of every single person around you constantly, and it's working great, and you're getting everything you want. Well, guess what? When the smoke clears, sometimes it all falls apart. And guess what? Blues Traveler. This is my new thing's been, every time I say something, I'm like, there's a song for it. Blues Traveler said, man, there's a long, 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 long way to fall. That's it, man. That's it. Like, you get up that high, it's a long way down. And you got Diddy, you got Biden, you have the whole party on that side. The whole 9 yards, man. Like you practice this dark magic stuff, and once the curtain comes apart, you're done. You're done. You're fried, and you're done. Tom
Petty, free falling. That's what we're doing right now.
That's it.
We found the biggest hole in the world, and we are free falling through it. Like
Yes, sir.
fully putting arms out and floating down the hole, man. We're going deep. That dude, that was so bad. Like I don't know how people defend that. Like when they look back on it, like how do they look themselves in the mirror and think that they said that stuff on TV about how his mental health was, and they know exactly how he is? Dude, seriously? You got to be the most ignorant person on the planet to have believed that. And thank God we have people who snapped out of it. Jeez.
Yeah, it's true. Hey, you want to say hello to everybody? You up? You awake? Where are you, meaty head? Thank you.
Oh, right on.
He's a good co-host. He just sat there and slept the whole time, didn't make a sound.
Oh, man. Now, my question is, they're going to fire all those IRS agents.
I hope so.
If they don't, they just failed us. And we better push them. Because, look.
I think it's going to happen. I don't know if that's going to be the first thing that they hack. Because they're trying to, I don't know. I think they will. I don't think it's going to be immediate.
It's what affects us. I mean,
it is what affects us. I agree.
I mean, hello. We need those people to go away. Look, here's the truth of it, okay? We all don't necessarily want to cheat on our taxes, but we want every dime that we earn and not the government to take it. So we flip the middle barrels to both of them and say, I'm keeping this shit, bitch. And that's the way we think about it. So we're not trying to break the law. We just want all of our money. Okay? That's not a bad thing. They should just fix this garbage so we're not getting nailed one year and then okay the next. I mean, for God's sakes, I don't need to change tax laws every time I change a president.
Yeah, I mean, we need to remember that our relationship with government is that they're here to serve us and make sure that our rights that we have that are God-given, they're not given by the government or anything, right? They're God-given rights, okay? That they make sure that nobody that has any say over us, okay, is infringing upon those particular rights. This is not a citizen government relationship is not a consensual relationship. Okay. It's not a consensual relationship. You're born here and then you're under it. That's it. I didn't say, yeah, you know what you could do? Have rule over me. I never said that. When I was born, they said that I had to have a document issued to determine who I am to them, and then get a card that says what number I am. And then when I work, part of my fruits are theirs, and I never said that was all right. When I buy a piece of property, a piece of that's theirs, and I never said that was all right. I mean, it exists for a reason of structure. And then they hold it over us as a guise of, well, guess what? If you're here and you're using the society that we've created with the funds coming from this, whatever, then you're subject to it. And the only way for you to not necessarily be subject is to remove yourself abundantly and entirely from that. So you can't drive on the road that is put there because tax money paid for it and you didn't pay taxes. I mean, listen, it's all just a bunch of horse shit. It's all just a bunch of horse shit because, there's ways for them to gain tax revenue, provide better than they do, without thieving from our pockets, in the nature right off the top and then at every level. Because if you trace the dollar from top to bottom, as far as from a raw material, being produced into a consumable material, being produced into a product, then all the people that earn the money down the line, tax at every, literally, by the time you look at $1, I've never done the math, but I would have to assume that your dollar is really a penny or two value and has been taxed 99%, 99 cents on the dollar by the time you have a dollar in your hand.
Yeah.
which is crazy. Like they've collected 99 cents on your $1 by the time you have that dollar in your hand, meaning that you don't even, that $1 only really has 1 pennies of buying power. And this is the dynamic that they've created. So, hey, you know what I got to say to that? There you go. Taxation is theft.
You can't use the road because you didn't pay the tax. Well, what if I paid the tax, but you got a hooker with the money that I spent the money for my tax on? Do I get to partake in that hooker? Or are we all fucked here? Okay? In the wrong way. I mean, seriously, that's the stupidest thing in the world. Okay? It's like California. Let's just, we can't screw you anymore for the gas consumption. So let's screw you by the mile for your electric car.
Yeah.
It's like they just have a big sign that says bend over here and you're welcome to California.
Well, you want to know something about motor vehicles is that the only reason that driving is a privilege is because of the money-making opportunities that it provides for local governments. Okay, because it's a bastardization of the Constitution of the United States that allows for free travel of American citizens, to say that in order to use the main source of transport in this country that we've developed to be this way with lack of infrastructure for any reasonable alternative, that's saying that this common use method of transport is a privilege, is a bastardization of the original right to travel. And the only reason that they do it is because they could collect registration fees on you. They could collect inspection fees on you. They could regulate what you can and can't drive. They could do that by also charging manufacturers different taxes because, again, it's a privilege of a commodity item. And then the biggest reason that they do it is because they could leverage you, okay, for violations of non-criminal offenses that are non-arrestable or finable offenses necessarily, okay? They could then leverage you by suspending your driving privileges to succumb to non-law regulation of bureaucratic organizations.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
what they do.
That's
That's the whole entire, that's it. The whole thing is a complete and utter violation of American citizens' rights. I can't speak for any other country, just America. But
Oh,
that's
it is.
it.
100% agree, man.
Yep. I love this country and I hate the government. America. You know? That's when you know you got blue blood, you know?
Well, yeah, if they wouldn't suck so much out of us, I mean, seriously, like, give a guy a break. You know, it's the stupidest thing. I watched something that Reagan said just recently. It was on a short on YouTube. And he was talking about all politicians talk about is taxing the rich. Well, that just becomes a cost of goods for the rich people. And then that gets passed on to us as a tax. So every time they tax them, they're taxing us. And we don't realize how stupid we are to vote for that. Like, seriously, quit talking about taxing the rich. You're taxing us. Quit taxing everyone. How about take your stupid laws that we don't like and get rid of them so that we don't have to pay for it. Quit sending money to other countries because we're sick of it. Okay? I want the bridge around the corner to actually be a bridge next year. So fix it so that I don't have to sit here and fall into the river, and then we don't have to send all that money to these morons because they obviously don't know how to spend it, and you're just doing it for your own evil purposes to get money in your pocket. And we're sick of seeing it. Fix the goddamn shit in our country. That's what we pay our taxes for. Get off your lazy butts and get it done. Quit putting in there, oh, we need to see a fucking shrimp on a treadmill. No, I don't want to fucking see $1 million for a shrimp on a treadmill. Fuck you. Give me the $1 million back, okay? Let me put it into my house. Let me do something good with my life. Fuck your goddamn shrimp on a treadmill.
I mean, could you imagine if rather than trying to collect money through taxation and penalization, they actually had to monetize the government to a way that they have to function as a business in society and
Oh,
provide
thank God,
service
finally.
and earning to society, but on a non-for-profit basis that goes to running the country. Could you imagine that? Like rather than having third-party contractors for our military equipment, could you imagine if they just LLC'd the hell up, hired people to build this stuff rather than having outside contracts? Could you fathom that?
Yeah.
Like that way they're running a piece of the economy and the money's coming back through the sale of their equipment to external sources. Could you imagine if the government said, you know what? We have all these struggling farmers. They don't make a ton of money, but it's not like they don't make any money. But since we could, have certain amounts of land, we're just going to farm this out, not be in competition with our direct farmers, but we're going to farm this for export. And then this money is going to come to pay for services within this country. You see what I mean? Like there's
Yeah.
there's ways that they could monetize the government through industry and commerce that's directly in competition, creating free market in with entrepreneurship and independent ownership, and if they're selling in this country, they have to be able to keep it competitive with the free market that exists outside of it. But for exports, they could do whatever the hell they need to do to make their money, and they could export tons of goods, make tons of money coming into this country. Never occurred to them because you know what they are? They're fucking pencil pushers, man.
Yeah.
They're and we got to stop making lawmakers. We've had 200 years worth of cumulative laws that they seldom ever get rid of any, and yet they make new ones all the time. We don't need lawmakers. We need people to protect the rights of our people while figuring out ways to do the best by them.
We need
By being
constitutionalism.
part of our economy, not a leech on it.
Well, yeah. Look, your job in Congress is to defend the Constitution at all costs. That is your number one priority. If that's all you do and you're in there as a congressman or woman, I 100% support you and you'll get my vote all day. If you're in there to make laws and make yourself rich, get the fuck out. Okay? Flat out. I don't like you. I don't want you. And I will not vote for you. Now, I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat at that point. If you're that big of a piece of shit, you need to get the fuck out. I don't
Here's
like
the problem, man. Most of these politicians, they do get involved for the right reasons, but it's when you have it coming at you from every angle and you realize it's the way it works. Sometimes like if you're not taking these deals to get rich, to screw everybody over, to give them things that they don't want, if you're not taking these deals, you're not getting reelected. So I think the way that they start to rationalize it from their own psychology is, well, you know what? I still have a chance to do a decent amount of the good that I set out to do, but I have to play this game or else I'm never going to be able to do it. But the game is also benefiting me, so I'm going to play the game. You see what I mean? Like it's sort of like, they have a good side about them, but then they have this other side that they have to contend with, and then some people, they're just outright terrible. They realize what it is, they abandon ship, and then they're just all in it for the grabs.
Well, that's why we need term limits and we need separation of industry and Congress. Flat out. You cannot go to industry after you're done with Congress or the Senate, any of it. You're done. You have to get out of Washington altogether. That's the deal. We want term limits in that because we don't want you part of the swamp because that's who you are. I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat. You're part of the swamp. And that's what you're just a succubus. And you're like an ex-wife who keeps taking all your money. You're a fucking succubus.
No, I hate to like bring up public forum, especially when he's not here to like defend himself. But like I know how Ben promotes Marxism and such, and I only have one thing to say about that is that Ben shares and I don't know if he even realized this or not, but he shares a lot of the same frustrations that we're voicing right now and a lot of the same things, right? But his solution to the problem is something else entirely. That something else entirely is the worst possible thing that could ever. And I don't need to go into explanation or debate or deep thing. The thing is, you see how we're discussing it is about tearing down the government and giving it more back to the people and having the government actually work in conjunction with and for the people while still maintaining private ownership and free market economies and giving the opportunity for growth and expansion and giving incentive for people to actually innovate and build, right? That's what we're talking about. What he's talking about is the polar opposite. It's saying that the government has to get involved. The government has to mandate that this is the way it operates and everybody gets a bit of it and everybody gets that's the most literal, like, same frustration, worst possible solution. And like, well, yeah, but no, yeah, but giving the government rights over you, if you think that's a good idea, like, man, that's batshit crazy. Like, if that's how you feel, like, and I'm not saying about him, but just generally as a matter of speaking, if that's how you feel, do me a favor, send me all of your money and then I'll tell you how much of it you could get and what you could have and what you can't. And, check in with me and I'll just, I'm at the grocery store. I need $2 for an orange. Sorry, Ben, no oranges today, only pineapple. Or just flat out, no, sorry, not today. But it's mine. Well, yeah, but the company's not doing as good today. What do you mean the company's not doing as good? I just worked all day. It's like, well, yeah, but you're a part shareholder in it, and I didn't do good today, so you worked for nothing.
Yeah. Hey,
right? That's how it goes, right?
Half your buddies called in sick while you work, so you get less.
That's it. Yep. We didn't meet the quota today. We came in at a deficit. Today you owe me, send me $26.
Yeah, you owe me money because no one showed up to work with
right.
you. Sorry.
It's the only way that you could possibly imagine that to be working is if there's no such thing as greed and no such thing as risk as far as
lazy people.
As loss.
You have to expect everybody to not be the lazy butthole. That's what you got to expect. Because as soon as they are, then your whole system goes down because everybody hates that guy. The guy that calls into work every day. Because nowadays you go to work and you go, oh, I called in sick, so I have to cover part of his work job, right? Whatever he's doing. And then it gets to the point where, like, why am I feeding him when I'm doing all the work? You see, that's why it fails right then and there. Because not everybody's equal. Not everybody does the same job. So it's so hard to give everybody the same thing. Like,
that's it. And maybe it will come. And I said this before on prior episodes. Like, maybe it will come a point where, like, things are so kind of taken care of here that more people than not sit there, look around, and be like, I can't earn a living, and the scarcity is less than it's ever been, but I have no access to this. So there would have to be some kind of shift in how the economy works. Okay, but that shift could be not that, because giving more power to that is the wrong thing to do every time. That's it. Wrong thing to do every time in every circumstance.
Yeah.
It's the opposite of freedom.
Yeah, because then as soon as you start disciplining the person for not working, then it becomes unfair again. And
right.
Then the government will have to grow to make that fair again. So there's going to have to be another pencil pusher who gets hired in order to make that guy get to work. He's got to go there and wake him up and get him there on time. And then when his buddy over there decides to do the same thing, you got to hire another pencil pusher in order to get him up. And then before you know it, there's more pencil pushers than workers. And you're like, why did everything go so wrong? Well, it's because your structure sucks. If everything was free and we had to pay nothing for it, and we had replicators, then maybe that society would work great. Maybe at that point, everything would be fine. But we don't have that. Okay? You're not turning your turds into steaks. I mean, that's just not happening. Okay? So,
and if you were, I wouldn't eat it.
Well, unfortunately, that's probably the way the replicator worked. The biggest biomass turned into the thing that you eat. So you have a whole new vision of Star Trek now. They poo and then they eat their poo as steak.
I want to throw it out there. None of this is disrespect to Ben. He's more entitled to have his opinion on it. He obviously makes episodes much separate of this that are very passionate on his perspective. And I always encourage anybody interested in this subject to go see his stuff as well. Don't ever be one-sided, absorb all the information. But since he's passionate about it on that side, I see no harm in being passionate about it on this side. And I even somewhat apologize for naming names, but I think that we're a close enough community that we all know what the hell we're talking about here.
Well, we're not railing against Ben. We're railing.
No, it's not. It's just about the principle of it, and he happens to be the one that.
Oh, okay. I wasn't talking anything about Ben. I was talking about.
I know, but I mentioned his name, and that probably wasn't the best. I'm sorry, man. Peace and love. I love you, bro.
Okay. Well, as long as you cleared that up, I still don't like the idea.
No, it's a fucking terrible idea.
Oh my god, dude. Like literally, Joe, we have literally jumped in the giant fucking rabbit.
I don't know how it got there, but I wasn't trying to reel it back because honestly, sometimes these things need to be said.
It's like the frustration of the world, man. Just gotta get it out.
Yeah,
dude, it's been
it
so
has
bad.
to do with the new year, man. It's about hopefully leaving some of it behind and hoping for the best and being positive.
So let me
With
say
what we
this:
got.
why you guys are in different parts of the states. I'm in California, okay, and the diesel price when it gets up around like $7, you know what I mean, for a gallon of fuel, is fucking horrendous. Okay, you're going, oh man, I got to pay $4. Oh, big fucking whoop. Okay, I go there and it's $7, and I'm going like, do I really need to go to the store this week? Do I really need to go to the pharmacy this week? Like seriously, those are the questions I'm asking myself. And then they go on TV and they say, it's not as bad as you think. Fucker, pay my gas bill then. Get your little card and swipe it every time I go over there, okay? And normally I go, all right, $4 or $5 a gallon, you might be spending, about $100. No, a couple $100. They don't even have a limit on the card. It's like, hey, buddy, after $100, you got to use a different card in order just to fill up your truck so you can go roaming around. And it's like, but I'm retired. I only go to the store and home and to the park. And they go, no, I'm sorry. It's still that much. So here, bend over. We'll insert the fuel and say it's the government's fault, right? And they'll slap a Joe Biden sticker on your fucking truck and tell you to get the fuck out. That's the way it works here in California. So, yeah, you think it's bad where you are. Wait till you live here and then you get charged for stupid shit. Like you got a puddle in your front yard and some a-hole sees it. They come by and go, oh, I need to check the pH level of your puddle. And then I need to isolate your puddle. Then you cannot touch it or else we're going to fine you. That's California.
But remember something. The same people that are taxing that fuel as a prohibitive measure of to inhibit your free travel are the same people that said that hydrogen cells were that hydrogen tanks were dangerous. Okay, reasonable enough. So you make a hydrogen cell that keeps up with the hydrogen needs of the vehicle, and then they're like classified.
Yeah, classified.
Right.
Yeah, we won't look at that.
No patent. It's classified.
Yeah.
Impossible. So this is what you're dealing with.
Yeah.
This is the frustration.
Yeah, no, they do that in labs and they go, okay, yeah, it's a provable science fact, but you can't have it. You're not good enough to have it.
Yep. Meanwhile, just build another fake set of islands in Dubai, whatever.
Yeah, why not? Yeah, it's so bad. I don't blame other countries for our problems. It's our fault.
Oh, this is greed at its finest.
We elected these
Systemic
greedy
greed.
morons. We did the job here. We got so caught up in the stupid thing they told us to. Hey, it's got to be Republican and Democrat. And we got on our high horse. We forgot to see that this guy's an imbecile and this little one here is just as bad of an imbecile. I should have just voted for the guy that was halfway decent that didn't have a party. You know what I mean? At least then we'd be all right, but not with these people. Term limits and get them the fuck out. Get in. You're a lawmaker that keeps creating laws. Get out. Fire that guy immediately. There should be a list. If you make more than 5 laws while you're in Congress, they should automatically fire you. You should be like terminated on the spot. Like, dude, get the fuck out. Here's the door. Look, we'll have this guy over here like pull fire alarms for the door. He'll fucking pull it for you. You get the fuck out. Okay.
Well, the way
Like,
that
as
it
fast
works
as you
is
can.
it's the most corrupt of the corrupt. So, when you have these heads of party and stuff like that, those are all the people that sponsor the bills and such. And as like a junior lawmaker, more or less, in Congress, basically you have to fall into the good graces of these, higher people in order to get your stuff into the bills. And the only way to do that is to do their will, which is always, signing off on things you wouldn't believe in, or, it's bad. It's bad stuff, man. It's bad. Hoping it changes.
I don't think it will. Unfortunately, as much as we
no,
right
probably
now,
not. It's deep, man. It's very deep.
no, dude, I got my wading boots on and it's starting to come into my boots. Okay. Let's just put it that way. It's bad.
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah. Oh, well. All right. Well,
On that note,
we're going to have to ascend to a higher plane of existence and go seek refuge from all this stuff. Because this is, sorry.
hey, no, man, this is why being, good with yourself is important, and being able to detach somewhat from all this so you can see the reality of it. This is why this is more important than ever. This whole episode, all these frustrations that we voiced, it comes down to the individual. And when you have enough individuals all on the same plane where it's like you see everything for what it is and you're able to operate more for good than for yourself, you could really make a difference largely when enough people are of that mind. So if you're not on board, get on board.
What pisses me off is when the rich person sits there and puts their snubby fucking nose up in the air and say, this economy's great. This economy's good for us. I'm sorry, I don't have money in your banking sector where you make money, asshole.
Right.
Okay, I'm trying to just live here. So, sorry, I'll keep going, and I don't mean to.
No, I get it.
Fed up with it, dude. It's just
because it's gaslighting. Those are people that are not looking at the big picture. Generally speaking.
Well, they deserve to be fired. Like all the people at CNN, you deserve what you get for what you did. You fucking deserve it. You get fired. Good. Okay. I'm sick of them.
Yeah.
I hope all those people get fired and then they'll come up with another bunch of idiots that want to do it as well. They should have just taken the whole thing and gone back to news. Just go back to telling us the news. Just tell us, hey, I'll be honest with you. I would rather turn on that channel and listen to what's going on in the Middle East and find out, what's going on there with Israel. I would like to see the true understanding of what's going on in the war in Ukraine. Okay. Not this polished version of this turd you're trying to sell us.
Yeah.
Just be honest about it. Direct reporting. This is what it is. Hey, I tuned back in to see it. We don't want to see your gaslighting. I don't want to see you telling me that I'm white and I suck. Okay? I'm getting tired of it. Fucking take your shit and shove it. And I'm not going to redirect it at the wrong person. I'm directing it back at who told it to me. Okay? That was the CNN people. They told me I suck because I'm white. Okay? Fuck them. Okay.
Well, but this is the whole entire purpose of this episode toward the end, right? Wasn't it? We said when you start airing certain ideas and you say it enough times, people start to catch on to it, and because they're told it so many times from so many directions, it becomes inherent truth, even if they don't believe it within themselves. But people might doubt these ideas, but when it's fed to them from those angles, then they start to see these small instances with their own two eyes. And once that happens, that becomes then a founded belief, and I think that people fell down that trap for a very long time. A lot of people fell down that trap for a very long time. I feel like a lot of those same people also looked around them and said, this is bananas. Like, there is such a thing as when you push it too far, all of a sudden it kind of gets exposed one little way. But once that one little way is exposed and you start questioning everything that you've been fed, you'll realize that it was all nonsense all along. Most of it. People are inherently good. Even people that speak big, like talk and whatever, like those people, they talk the talk. Most of the time they're not out there actively hurting people. And most of the people out there actively manipulating people, they're doing it like uncaringly for a paycheck. It's not even that it's something that they necessarily want to do. It's just what ends up being the case, because you have a few small people out there that are genuinely evil, that do want to move pieces and so on and so forth. And because they're the ones dishing out the dough, they're the ones, people are succumbing to their own needs. Well, yeah, things might not be that great right now overall, but things are about to be a lot better for me if I start playing the game. You see? Yeah. And if you play the game, then you do better than if you don't play the game. And it spreads. This is how it goes. People aren't inherently evil, but people will inherently do the bidding of evil people if it protects them from the wrath that follows.
Yeah, they're the people that go in the theater and yell fire. And they need to accept that. And, I always said this. You don't punish a media company by taking their money. You punish them by taking the ability to make their money. So if they prosecute somebody on TV, like they did that Sandman kid, and they continue to bring it up in every hour and every block of their news cycle, well, guess what? The judge should make them apologize in every hour for exactly the same amount of time that they did in those news hours for the future news hours in order to compensate. You're going to drive away the people who invest in that news company. That's going to hurt them more than it did by taking a few $1 million. Okay?
Yeah, but the biggest problem is that the investors of these things, it's an illusion, because it seems like all these different people, all these different companies, but realistically it's all the same people. And it's all because most of the companies that have money to be investing in these sorts of things, are all owned by the same handful of people. And that's something that we've kind of talked about before.
I completely understand that, but the truth still comes in the end. If you have to apologize more than you can say anything about the future news, then you actually cannot do your job as a news company. So it doesn't matter how many millions they give you for sponsorships or ads or anything else, even if it's from one individual who owns everything, it won't matter. You cannot get your message out anymore. See, that's the point. You have to straighten them out by making sure they don't lie, and lie as much as they do. And then once you've done that, it's over. They cannot continue to have an empire whatsoever, because they cannot spread propaganda, because they're too busy apologizing for what they did. Because it's not just one time it'll happen. It's every story that they cover and lie on. Then they have no time whatsoever to promote new stuff. You see, that's how you wipe them out.
I couldn't agree with you more. The same exact psychology that they use, it's only as strong as people's belief of it. So all you got to do is start discerning your own information and rejecting what you know to be inherently incorrect or unfounded, or at least being speculative, like, being having scrutiny for it. And then you're free of it. You're free of it. That's it.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, if the world around you isn't free of it, you're still subject to it. So the more that this discernment is able to happen, the more it could be rejected. You don't have to do anything active. You can passively take the power away of all this just simply by questioning it. Yeah. That's all it takes. So,
well, they're going to learn soon, because soon there won't be media empires. There'll be individuals on the internet talking about it. And don't get me wrong, you'll still have media companies and they'll still do their job, but they'll figure out it's more profitable just to tell the actual news than it is to gaslight. That'll come to light fairly quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, listen, our audience, these are people that already question the narrative, or else you're not part of this audience. because then you just believe that electric is something that you plug a thing into the wall and then the bill comes and that's what it is and whatever. And like, for instance, that's obviously just a for instance, it's only when you question it all that you get to the point of realizing that this is what we're dealing with here. And then when you start looking around, you're like, oh, it's not just like energy, it's everything.
Well, look, here's the thing. I'll say this. Even if there was free energy, okay, and you could somehow produce it at your house, if you gave me the alternative of a company that came in for a fair price and took care of all the building of it and made it, but then made the power lines and you say, I got to pay for maintenance on my lines. I got to pay because I'll come into your house and fix the problem if it happens. I'm okay with that. Okay. You can make money in that way because I choose not to have the stuff on my site. But if you're out in the middle of nowhere, obviously you're going to choose the opposite. Okay. I'm okay with either one of them. What I'm not okay with you is you lying to me about it. That's it. Like we're in California, we get brownouts. Okay. Why? Just freaking turn on the power station for God's sake. We don't need to have people dying in their homes because you couldn't do your job. That's ridiculous. I mean, it's the dumbest thing. Look, just build another power station. Take all your little laws and get them out of the way and build another power station. Let the people that are in their house that need the air conditioning, 100-degree heat, let them have it. Okay? You see, that's not what they're fixing here. They want to change your name. They want to change your gender. No, how about you change the fact of the air conditioning in somebody's house so they can stay alive? How about that?
Well, right. I mean, the whole premise of this entire podcast is self-discovery, embracing the self, realizing who you really are. But look at what that narrative is. Being confused about what you even are at your most base level sense. How are you ever going to find some kind of higher self when you don't even know what the hell is going on at this surface level stuff that's, generally speaking, not even, and look, I mean, people do as they may. Maybe that's where someone's soul is, and they need to do that. And listen, you do you, but like at the end of the day, like to sell this to the masses and promote it as some kind of like mass situation where it's like, oh no, there's a lot of people, and then the tactics that they use, and they train psychotherapists and so on to validate people's irrational feelings rather than actually get them to the bottom of what's going on and accepting greater parts of themselves that might exist, that they just end up leading them down a path of treatment that seems promising to the person in the moment through validating things that needed to be worked through. Like it's insanity is what it is. And frankly, it's abuse. It's widespread abuse. And, there's a lot of people that unfortunately that fell into that category that suffered worse than being cured, lost their, I would say probably just as many people lost their lives being dissatisfied with that sort of deal or that type of treatment than were saved, or had problems after the fact that they regret. And, maybe pride is in the way of them even saying that. And now they have a whole nother world of it. Like there's all sorts of things, man. Like, and just people need to just get to the bottom of themselves and know, like within themselves, rather than being told what they need. That's it. People know what's best for themselves oftentimes.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. It just some of this stuff, man. I hate railing on politics and stuff on this channel because that's not what we do. It's just sometimes you got to get it out, man. And then some of this stuff. And let me just say this, Joe. I'm going to say this so that we all understand each other. There's people out there saying they'll give out every secret in the world because they were punked like a bitch. And let me just tell you, you probably fucking deserved it. Okay. And if you want to get out this stuff and you want to be an asshole about it and not know anything and get out the stuff that can hurt people at the same time, fuck you. I don't want nothing to do with you. And I do not want to have anything to do with anything you're talking about. Okay. I'm sorry. I'm not here to hurt people. That's not my job. I come here and I build things and I show people how to build them, but I will not show anybody in this world how to build anything destructive. I just won't do it.
That's a good personal decision to make for you.
Yeah, I mean, look,
you know,
I'm never going to get out here and tell you, hey, this is how you build the dumbest thing in the world that you could build. That's just stupid. Okay. But if you want free energy, I'll help you build it. I won't let you build the other side. And I'm going to make a very clear distinction between it. But look, you get on here and you start railing. Hold on, Joe. You get on here and you start railing and you start fucking going off at the mouth. Like, hey, I'll just give it to everybody because I'm all pissed off like a whiny little cunt. I'm sorry. Get the fuck out. There's no room for you in this area. Okay. Just get out. Okay. I don't care who the hell you are. Get out. Okay. I'm sorry. You do it for the right reasons or you don't do it at all. Okay. You're either helping people or you don't. And that's just the way that it goes. Okay. We're not in this to do anything to help any people do any bad stuff to anyone else just because I got a whiny, pissy attitude. Okay. That's not who I am, not what I do. And I will not put up with anybody doing it. And I'm sorry. I don't care if you're trying to help get out free energy or not. You're going about it the wrong fucking way. Okay. And I have no problem telling you to go fuck off. Okay. I will not fucking deal with that. You have to be in it for the right reasons. You have to be in it to help everybody else. This is about believing in the Almighty and taking care of things. Okay. This is not about, hey, I have a bad attitude today. Okay. You take that bad attitude and you get out because I don't want you here. I don't want you in this thing. I don't want you anywhere around it. So clean your stuff up, fix it, do it for the right reasons, or just leave. And that's the way I feel about those kind of people. And I won't change. Okay. So look, if you're out there and you're a scientist and you're trying to do the right thing and you want my help, you want me to build something for you? You want me to help you build something strong for the future? I'm here for you. Okay. You're out there just because you want to get out something because you have a bad attitude? Dude, jump in the lake. I don't want nothing to do with you. Okay. Just flat out. That's just the way I am. Okay. I won't change it. I won't do it for profit. Okay. Not a chance in hell. Okay. I know so much about this tech that it's unreal. And I will not use it for the wrong reason. Not one bit. I won't even be close to showing it to you. Okay. Don't care about the views. Don't care about the money. Don't care about any of that in comparison to people doing good and being good with each other. Okay. There's a lot of people out there that don't understand this. I never get mad at people in the way that you may think I do. Okay. I just don't work that way. You could say crack on me all day long. I just don't care. Okay. All I care sometimes is that you show up. That's it. You know what I mean? But people don't understand this thing. And they get this whole mental picture of something else. Dude, you want to build it? Let's build it. But if you're in it for the wrong reasons, don't even bother. And just leave. I will not put up with that at all. Not one bit. I'm too old for this. I've already created it. And you're over there talking about a theory that you have no idea how it fucking works. Okay? Let me just tell you that right now. So that's just my thought on it. I had to say it. I had to get it off my chest because listen, I don't want to name names. Fair, it's not about that. It just we're building stuff here that changes our entire civilization by just the fact that it exists. And look, I'm not talking from a place where I haven't built it, dude. I got stuff in my garage you can't find that you won't be able to tell anybody about that I would honestly rather take a hacksaw to than to ever show it. Okay? I don't want anybody to know about it. And there's reasons I don't show a lot of things, man, because it's like, dude, no, you should never see this in your life. I'm sad that I had to see it. So anyway, that's my rant.
When my son was old enough to like use a knife, we were in scouts together and stuff. When he was old enough to ask me like, hey, can you show me, can I use this knife? And I said, well, not without me showing you how to use this knife. I taught him how to slice a tomato. I taught him how to carve a stick, taught him how to open a box. I taught him, how to cut a piece of string. I taught him how to, chop vegetables. I taught him how to sharpen a pencil. And I told him how to watch his fingers. All right. You know, but everybody knows that a knife is more than those things. But that's not what you teach. And that's not what you preach. And those aren't the things that you say it's used for. Even when you well know it is. Because what would be terrible is if I turned around to him and I said, "You want to see how to use this knife?" And I turned around to a box and said, "Boom, boom, boom, slash, slash, slash." Because you could easily do that with a knife. But that's not its use. That's not its use. And that's everything across the board, is what it boils down to. And there's a reason that you would never think, if you're decent enough, you would never think to tell somebody who doesn't know or is just learning the wrong uses of something, without knowing the good uses and promoting that and how not to hurt yourself with it. That's what it comes down to, an acknowledgement like, hey, listen, if done the wrong way, though, you could slice your finger. You're cutting that tomato. You don't watch where your thumb is. You might not have a tip to your thumb.
That's right.
Might not, so you got to watch your finger. There's a lot of implications with everything that we do, but we promote the usefulness. We teach the usefulness, and that's common sense to me. That's what I can say.
Yeah, well, some people don't have it. And it's like, I don't know. It's frustrating, if they're just here to be a talking head, whatever. You know what I mean?
I
Go-
do know.
Find something else
I
to
know
do.
what you mean. I know what you mean.
Yeah, just go find something else to do. Find something else, okay? Because you don't belong in this area.
I mean, look, it to me, it could be just as helpful without any of that. Like,
Yeah.
it could be just as helpful without any of that. It's to me, it's not adding anything. But I don't know. I'm not trying to justify anything for anyone, but it's like I'm sure there's a lot of pent up frustration because there's so many naysayers out there. There's a lot of people that try to tear down what you're doing, and some people just don't have the common mind to put those feelings to the side and effectively and reasonably objectify the criticisms, as opposed to turning the page to the point where it goes to like, oh yeah, well, there's another side to this coin and that's what should be used, and that's just not, it's not appropriate. It's not, even when it comes from just like some kind of guttural response. We all have responsibility for ourselves, the things we do, the things we say, and sometimes we pay the price for the things we do, the things we say. So I think that's important, to understand.
Joe, I understand if it comes from a point of frustration based on somebody trying to disagree with you, but this whole thing in science is about people disagreeing with you. Look, Todd out there disagrees with me every day, but I love having a conversation with him, even if he thinks I'm a total idiot. Okay, for what I say, I still enjoy it. Okay, two different ends of the perspective, but I enjoy his input. Now, we can get over our differences just like that. It's that simple, okay? You just have to say, I give that person's argument legitimacy, okay? Because they may have a point, because we don't know what the end result is, right? Like I could say fields, you could say electrons, okay? Who knows who's right now? I mean, we both don't know if we're right at that point, because we're not in some micro little universe where we can see it, So whatever. I don't care one way or the other. As long as the tests prove out to be one way or the other, that's what I'm happy with. I don't care how you describe it. Okay? That's not going to be my job in the end of it anyway. I'm just going to build it and you're going to describe it, and that's the way it's going to work. And then we'll go back and forth on how to build the next step. That's it. That's how this thing works. That's how science works. And you can't get real pissy about someone disagreeing with you, because at some point, some of what they say may have legitimate value. Like, you never know when it's going to pop into your head when you get to the next stage of it. And it's like the anomaly they pointed out shows up, and you feel like a total moron because you were just like huffing and puffing about it instead of going, well, okay, let me write that down on the board, and then we'll evaluate back when we get done, right? That's it. It's as simple as that. But not everybody does that. And then they take it all personal and stupid. And it's like, there's no reason for that. There's just no reason to be stupid about it. Like, if they say it's one way, you say it's another, great. Go have your truth and keep shouting it out to the world that that's what happened. Okay? I don't care if people disagree with me. I'm just going to do it anyway.
No, listen, I I can sit there and talk to somebody that I agree with, like, I guess all day, but it's not really ever an interesting conversation when you agree on all fronts. I like disagreement because that's what engages the thought process in the first place. Like, nobody's really unknowing and all knowing, and at the end of the day, like, there's times where, like, it's like, well, I didn't think I was wrong there, but, like, shit, enlighten me. Yeah, I'm saying it's this way, you're saying it's that. Come tell me why not then. That's fine. Like, I'm gonna listen. And I may sit there and play devil's advocate with you and kind of go bounce back and forth. None of it's personal. It's just simply like, that's the process of learning sometimes. Healthy conversation, healthy debate is what makes this go forward and not stagnate. And shutting out something that you disagree with unequivocally and rinsing it out of your mind as total nonsense, is the most unwise thing anybody can do when trying to learn something. And you're always in a process of learning. You remember the misinformation as well as the good information, because, like you said, there may come a point in time where you realize, wait a second, somebody said that something to me, like, and I didn't see it then. And maybe it's on a totally different application, but all of a sudden you're like, wait a second, now that makes sense in this context. Let's work that in there and see how this works. If you just write it off, forget it, and naysay it, you're never going to get any further than your mind is able to. And your mind doesn't create thoughts most of the time. Like, this is just a culmination of your processing of external information that you've received of your experiences and knowledge gained. That's it. So you're really limiting yourself by putting yourself into these bounds of pride. Once it turns into I need to be right, rather than no, we need to kind of discuss and argue the facts a little bit about this, maybe to get to the bottom of it. Once it becomes like, I'm going to prove that I'm right and you're wrong, you're done. You're done. You can state your case strongly, but as soon as that your mind is, I need to be right, you're done.
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, you're absolutely correct in that. I think people do that all the time. I don't know how many people tell me it's one way or the other, and then that's why I do the experiment, and they're like, oh, well, then it could be this. Well, you've acknowledged that you could have been wrong, and then now you're acknowledging that you could have a different perspective, right? So that's where I'm at. So I'll acknowledge that I'm wrong, and then we'll move on to a different perspective. We're all good with that. And that's part of the learning. Like, we're dealing with a pure RF field that turns into, that's basically a scalar field. That's it. And there's no magnetics in it. And it has to do with frequency. We were talking about that with Gerald's experiment. He's over there flipping a magnet, and you're going, man, there's got to be magnetism in this. But as Joe and I discussed, when you get to the frequency of the iron itself, then the experiment changes. So we'd all look like a bunch of idiots commenting on it until we found out what Gerald did. But you know what I mean? We all have to understand that we're going to be wrong a whole lot before we get to the right answer.
Well, the crazy thing is, and I mean, I guess I just want to say this for purposes of, what we do here. Okay. Recently, you've heard it. Oh, well, you go on Rogan or whatever, right? You've heard like, it's not easy to sit down for a 3-hour conversation with somebody and continuously have a flow of conversation, be making new points, be making sense, visiting new topics, all this stuff. And it's not easy for people to go and do that on different subjects, different people, one time. Okay. The people on this channel are on there doing this, me once a week at least, Nathan multiple times per week. None of this is easy types of conversations, and it's never going to be 100% correct all of the time, but that's sort of the point. That's sort of the point. That's the nature of the discussion. It's an evolving, ongoing, long format discussion that's going on here. And it's kudos to anybody that ever gets on here, whether it's for, 30 minutes or 3 hours, because sitting here and having these discussions of such, the thing is, like, none of the stuff that we ever discussed has definite answers generally. All of it is super speculative. You sit there speculating on things using your brain actively. You can't even have an answer prepared necessarily because it's also speculative, and it's also nuanced. This is it's something that you get used to, and it's something that you do, and it's great. I love doing this, but this is a challenge to get up here oftentimes, and actually be able to do this. And this is stuff that a lot of people can't. To take somebody and say talk for 3 hours on a subject and try to make it engaging and interesting. This is a good thing that you're doing, man.
Yeah, well, hopefully, I know our audience sees it that way because they all like to enjoy it, and I like to make some jokes, probably inappropriately at times when we should be talking about science. I do that quite often. But dude, you got to realize all day I sit in a garage and I build things. And some of the times, man, quite literally, I got this thing and I got this thing here and I'm looking at it and I got to wind this whole freaking thing. And I'm looking at it through little spectacles, man, little eyeglasses just to see the wire. That's what I'm doing all day to make these experiments work. You know what I mean? Building all this stuff. And I'm like, man, I need an outlet at the end of the day to get it out. And then, you know what I mean? You kind of go on and talk about it and see why you're doing it and things like that. That's kind of the outlet of getting it out.
Yeah.
So, yeah, by the way, Joe, I created, I'm doing 5 more coils just like the one I just showed you. I got
awesome.
I got one done. We're going to prove pure resonance. So it's an awesome experiment that's coming up, man. It's taking a lot of time. Like, I think my hands are going to have arthritis like crazy by the time I'm done. I'm not going to be able to see straight for a week, but it'll all be worth it as soon as I flip that first switch and everything turns on.
For sure, man. I can't wait to see it. I'm excited, and I'm sure it's going to be worth sharing.
Well, yeah, I mean, I proved resonance at a distance, right? So if I can go 63 inches with 2 coils that don't match and I just barely put them in sympathetic resonance, and then I can go 20 feet when they're in pure resonance and they're still not the same coil, what happens when I build 5 of these things and I got them all in perfect resonance? You know what I mean? We're going to see the woo. I mean, look, if green smoke starts coming out, I'm turning it off and running, okay? I will literally run down the street. I will not stay there.
Nope. I guess we'll see how close to the movies it is, huh?
Yeah. We're going to the woo, man. And I don't know. Maybe I won't do it in that way first, but I'll get to that point eventually because I got to see it for myself. I'm sorry to say, man, but I'm going to have to figure everything out in order to explain it to somebody else because otherwise I'm just, blowing hot air. So
I gotcha. Well, we could talk after that happens and figure out what it looks like.
I tell you what, man, if we start seeing black shadows in it, I might just break everything and throw it away.
Yeah, there's a lot that I don't talk about, like just generally about something like I said, whether you're opening up the point physically this way or within your own self, it's, you know, there's a lot of stuff I don't talk about too. You know, like, just again, you know, like, you got to know where you are in physical reality.
Yep.
That's how it goes.
All right, man, Joe. It's like 3.5 hours, man.
Yeah, this was a good one though, man. It was good. We got into all the nitty gritty, huh?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I guess people who turned into the first hour are going to be shocked by the rest of the hours, but maybe it's just good TV or something. I don't know.
Yeah, who knows? But I want to thank Jarvis for making a little guest appearance there, and
Yes.
you know,
Thank you.
adding as always. You know, it's always good to have that. You know, that extra voice in there.
Yeah. He goes to the woo quick, doesn't he?
Oh yeah, he does.
Like deep thought woo.
I got him.
Right on, man. All right, Joe. I think you should interview him on your channel once you get everything up and going.
I certainly will. I have a list of people I want to get to, and you know, kind of Q&A format, tap into them a little bit. So Jarvis will definitely be on there.
So why don't you describe what you're going to go into, Joe? I know you're not set up for it yet, but like when you get there, what's your show going to look like on your YouTube channel?
Sure. So it's going to be sort of segments, and it's going to be edited format more or less, so everything could kind of just be dense as far as what you get out of any given episode. And really, I want portions of it to be sort of not podcasty, but more like a topic for the day of what the overall episode will sort of encompass. You know, usually taking in and interviewing somebody that does something, you know, unique or interesting that may not be your everyday thing, whether it's an interest of theirs in a area of their expertise or something that a project that they're working on. Kind of get their background a little bit to see how they got into whatever it is that they're doing. You know, touch on how they, you know, some of the most significant influences that they had and some of the things that led them in the direction to where they're currently at, and then what they're currently doing and what they hope for the future, that sort of thing. Just sort of giving a little bit of a profile on, you know, unique and interesting people doing unique and interesting things. You know, and then sort of go off of that segment into maybe a loose discussion just about it, and then maybe a little show and tell about it. You know, some episodes will be different with like a little bit more like me going out doing stuff, you know, and kind of like come along with me. And then we all know that I'm a total disaster and a total joke. So like I'll probably do some absolutely absurd things along the way. You know, I'd probably do a lot of like parody skits and stuff just because I think that's hilarious. Yeah, and that sort of thing. And like, because I have such a vast interest in different things, like, you know, it'll encompass little bits and pieces of it all over the place. Don't be surprised when I'm sitting there like doing like, you know, a cooking tutorial or a little history lesson or something weird like that, you know, and I'll probably have some like, you know, like vulgar like puppets involved. You know, it'll be fun.
Puppets involved, huh?
Well,
That's gonna be
not
interesting.
I told you the idea, but I'll say it again. It's not puppets, really. What I want is I want really cruddily made, like computer printouts on like white paper of like a cartoon character, so to speak, that I'll like shittily color and then like staple to like a popsicle stick, and then I'll like cut a hole in a cardboard box to make like a, you know, like a scene, you know, with like different like whatever like backgrounds and stuff, and then I'll just record like the dialogue with like the you know, the stick puppet things. Right, exactly. And they'll do like ridiculous things, like, and trust me, it's ridiculous. Like, I don't want to give away too much, but like my one big idea is I want to do like the Gnostic story, the Gnostic creation story with like Pistis Sophia, the demiurge and stuff, and like God, and like just like do this whole thing where like God's all upset at Pistis Sophia because she created like this monstrosity, and the monstrosity's sitting there like he's a lion-headed you know, serpent or whatever, and he's just like going around and like create things, break things, and like smashing all the stuff up. And God's like, what's going on? What the hell is going on? And it's like, hell isn't invented yet. Let there be hell. And then like stupid crap like that. And then he's like, Jesus Christ, Sophia. And then Jesus pops in and he's like, yeah, Dad. And it's like, no, not yet. You're a few thousand years away. You'd be like, all right, Dad. And then he like stuff like that, you know. And then God turns around and it's just a blank piece of paper with a stick, but then it's got like an ass, like a 3-dimensional ass. You know, like I'm stupid like this, man. I think that shit's hilarious, so I'm gonna go with it. You know.
Oh, that's amazing. I can't wait to see that stuff.
Yeah, and I'll have like, you know, like music backgrounds and stuff, and it'll be nice. Like it'll take some time to get there, but it'll be nice.
All right, Joe.
Wait until the alien invasions, bro. Like on a stick with like little pieces of string hanging down there, like, and then have the people in Jersey, like on a little stick, be like, "Look, it's a drone," and they're pointing up. Then like the television comes in and it's like, drones are over New Jersey, nobody knows what they are. And then the UFO and then the alien comes down and it's like, that's not an alien. And you know, then the alien turns around and he's got a 3-dimensional ass.
That's gonna be hilarious, Joe. I like it.
Yeah, me too.
Right.
I think so.
So check it out. So since you said that's what your channel is going to be about, let's go ahead and share one of your shorts already, or one of your short videos.
All right.
So
we making tacos?
We're making tacos.
All right.
So you want to play the whole thing, or just after the beginning music?
No, play the whole thing. It's less than 2 minutes long.
All right.
In the deck of the terror, I wear the hat of the fool. In the flesh, I live the life of a beaten, broken tool. We're all on a different path, no matter who we are. Made of the same old shit, junk left over from a star. I might not know a thing about what I just said, but it made perfect sense to me as it was running through my head. Though I might be as mistaken as a snake is for a rope, I will always speak the words untold and spit the straight dope. I'm just a straight dope, talking straight dope. Tell it how it is, how it may be. Maybe.
Tacos de Gringas. All right, folks, I know you've been waiting for this for a long time. Today, we are making white people tacos. Let's go. Spice it up a little. Genuine fake Mexican taco shells. Find a selection of ground meat attained solely at a rural Walmart.
Now for a trick that I learned because I'm a professional cook. Add some water to the pan. Trust the process. Add your meat to the water. Mush it into the water. Work it until it looks just like this, mushy. That's what you want. Tear open your taco seasoning. Add the taco seasoning in while there's still plenty of water in the pan. And stir it up. If at this stage your taco meat looks like dynamic dog shit, you're doing it absolutely correct. This is done. Pop these in the oven. Living life dangerously. Volcano sauce. Sour cream. Because I'm masochistic.
So much fire.
Go Carolina Reaper sauce in there.
Ghetto-ass piping bag.
Load them up with meat. Just like real Taco Bell, you barely fit any meat in them. Perfect.
Perfect. There you have it. White people ass tacos. Delicious.
Oh man. Oh, let me just add to the fun, Joe. This is what you get from white people tacos.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Uh-huh. It's true. You get,
Oh man,
you
that's
get the
gonna
ring
be
of
great.
fire.
Yeah, that's gonna be so awesome, man. Oh,
That's what
JoJo
Johnny
the
Cash was
Kitchen
talking
Show.
about. Is, you got some white people tacos, and then you got Ring of Fire.
Oh man, yeah, I might get in trouble right now for all that music in the background of that. Oh,
I don't think so because I mean I have the copyright on that, so you're good.
oh, you do?
Uh-huh.
Oh, on the music when you're playing the when you're making the tacos.
Yep, that's Joe Spett. Did you see how it's the white people taco song with the mariachi band?
He made his own song for it. That's so awesome.
Yeah, all right. I made a song. I dumped it in the background. I was like, this will fit the ambiance. Yeah.
Oh man, yeah, everybody loves it, Joe.
Good. I'm glad. It was very silly stuff, but we'll get there. All good things in time.
Oh man. All right, guys. This has been an awesome show, man. I just want to say thank you to Joe for being here and hanging out with me, man, and doing this show. It's so awesome.
Absolutely. And remember, treat me nice in the comments or else I'll come remote view you without your permission, which is probably violating, but
He's gonna learn how you make tacos.
yeah, right. In the toilet and then tell you about your moles.
All right, guys. Thank you very much. It's been a great show. Thank you all the people in the chat,
Peace
man.
and
You've
love,
been awesome.
people. Till next week.
Have a great night.
Bye.